Chapter 591. Nye Tian suddenly thought of Rui Qinyu, and his expression couldn't help but change. Qianye is fine. I have other matters to discuss with you. Rui Qinyu saw the change in Nye Tian's expression and guessed what he was thinking. Alright, wait for me here. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. After agreeing, he decided to send Emo Tai and Emo Rushi back first before coming back to look for Rui Qinyu. Although Rui Qinyu had dealt with the surrounding assassins, Nye Tian still didn't feel at ease. Even if he entered Su Mi spiritual capital, he didn't dare to be careless. Elder Nye. Just when they arrived at the city gate, a burly figure appeared. His voice was like a drum, and it was very recognizable. Commander Zhao. When Nye Tian saw the person's face clearly, he couldn't help but feel happy. It was the 7th commander of the Danwu Hall, Zhao Kuo. When the guards saw Zhao Kuo taking the initiative to greet Nye Tian, they didn't dare to stop him and let him pass. Because of this, Nye Tian didn't even have to use his red robe token. Commander Zhao, I have some matters to attend to. Please escort them to Big Brother Gu Yi's residence. Nye Tian didn't stand on ceremony and directly said to Zhao Kuo. No problem. Previously, when Nye Tian gave Zhao Kuo a heaven-tier martial art, the latter's attitude towards him was very respectful. He said to the guards beside him, "The few of you escort these gentlemen away." Nye Tian frowned slightly and smiled faintly. Commander Zhao Kuo, I don't feel at ease with them escorting them. It's better if you escort them personally. Zhao Kuo was stunned for a moment before he bowed and said, All right. Nye Tian turned to Emo Rushi and Emo Tai and said, Rushi, Lord Emo Tai, you go back first. I have something to take care of and I'll be back soon. Then, he shot a glance at Qiushan, who nodded in understanding. Nye Tian, what exactly is his identity now? Emo Tai looked at Nye Tian's back and murmured, Mister, you still don't know? Nye Tian City Lord is currently one of the 8 red-robed elders of the Apothecary Guild. Zhao Kuo chuckled and said with a complacent expression on his face. Since Nye Tian was his friend, he felt that it was a great honor for him to say so. Emo Tai was stunned at first, and then he lost his composure completely. He felt as if 10,000 elephants were galloping through his heart, and his face froze. He couldn't recover for a long time. A red-robed elder of the Alchemist Association. This status was very high, so high that Emo Tai could not imagine it. A red-clad elder. This was a status that Emo Tai could not even see when he raised his head. How could he have imagined that the good-for-nothing family head of Moyang City would one day become such a big shot? Nye Tian turned around and saw that Raindrop was waiting for him. Furthermore, there was one more person beside Rain, Tawny. Nye Tian looked at the two of them and didn't say anything. They understood each other. The three of them quickly left the outer city and arrived at a remote and uninhabited place. Nye Tian felt very strange in his heart. Why was Raindrop looking for him? Furthermore, Raindrop was a very mysterious person. Back in the chaotic abyss, Royu had fought against Wanqi Rong and the others. She hadn't been at a disadvantage at all, and she was very familiar with Wanqi Rong's 6-word ghost language technique. He also mentioned Ling Xian Tian Pavilion's Pavilion Master, Netherworld Ghost, and seemed to know Netherworld Ghost. Now that Raindrop and Tawny were together, this made Nye Tian even more puzzled about his identity. Could this guy really be related to Ling Xian Tian Pavilion? Raindrop and Rui Qinyu were related by blood, so he was undoubtedly the latter's elder brother. However, it was very strange that he survived when the bloody slaughter palace was destroyed. Nye Tian sensed Raindrop's strength and was slightly surprised. He had actually reached the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel. Back in the chaotic abyss, Raindrop's strength was only at the 9th tier of the primordial element. In half a year, he had reached the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel. This martial arts talent was indeed worthy of someone with the 9-yang constitution. Nye Tian City Lord, I know you are very puzzled about my identity, but I can't tell you too much now. I can only tell you that I am not your enemy. Raindrop's eyes flashed with a sharp light as he said very straightforwardly. I believe you. Tian City Lord smiled faintly and didn't ask too much. He said, Tell me, why are you looking for me? Raindrop seemed to smile and said, Tian City Lord is indeed a smart person. Then I will not waste any more time. As he spoke, he suddenly took out something in his hand. It was actually a medicinal herb. This was a very strange medicinal herb. It was dark green in color and emitted a strange luster. Its shape was very strange. It had 4 limbs and a head. When it extended, it was actually in the shape of a human. The human-shaped flower was struggling with all its 4 limbs as if it was in great pain. Moreover, there was a faint, mournful cry in the surrounding space. Tian frowned slightly as he felt the medicinal herb's aura. Suddenly, he thought of something and his expression suddenly changed. He blurted out 3 words, Devil God Flower. The aura of the human-shaped flower in front of him reminded him of a kind of legendary flower, the Devil God Flower. The Devil God Flower was an 8th-tier medicinal herb. According to legend, it took 100 years to take root, 100 years to grow leaves, and 100 years to bloom. The strangest thing was that the Devil God Flower was different from other flowers and plants. It did not absorb nutrients from the soil, but instead fed on the essence and blood of spiritual beasts. It was said that the Devil God Flower could create illusion traps to attract spiritual beasts and then let them die in the illusion. It grew with the essence and blood of spiritual beasts as nourishment. Because the Devil God Flower was nourished by the essence and blood of spiritual beasts, it contained the most violent spiritual power in the world. No wonder when Tian looked at the Devil God Flower just now, he had an illusion that he was deeply immersed in the illusion. You actually know about this flower? Ruo Zhensu was very surprised. She did not expect Tian to know about the Devil God Flower. Tian nodded slightly and asked, Where did you get the Devil God Flower? That is not something you should be concerned about. Ruo Zhensu smiled faintly and said, I want to use the Devil God Flower to make a deal with you. What kind of deal? Tian's gaze froze. There was an unconcealable passion in his eyes. If he could obtain the Devil God Flower, he was confident that he could increase his strength to the 9th tier of the primordial element or even the spirit wheel realm within a month. The Summer Grand Meeting was about to begin. At this time, Tian urgently needed to increase his strength. Hence, he was very eager to obtain the Devil God Flower. I want you to help me kill someone. Ruo Zhensu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Her tone also became gloomy. Help you kill someone? Tian was slightly stunned. Immediately after, he laughed and said, Are you making fun of me? Ruo Zhensu's strength was the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel. Furthermore, he had the 9 yang constitution. His true strength was comparable to that of a 3rd or even a 4th tier spirit wheel warrior. With his strength, he could kill anyone he wanted. Why would he need Tian to kill someone? Do I sound like I am joking? Ruo Zhensu said coldly. I cannot kill that person. I can only ask someone to do it. Huh. Tian's gaze froze. His expression became serious. He said, Who is the person you want to kill? Chapter 592. Yu Tianjin. Tian was dazed for a second when he heard the name. When he heard the explanation, his pupils contracted. He didn't expect that the person you wanted to kill was the son of Lingxian Tian Pavilion's master, Yu Guei. Tian had long since known that Ruoyu and Nether Ghost knew each other, but he hadn't known about their relationship. Could it be that there was some kind of deep-seated hatred between them? Mr. Ruoyu. Tawny was also surprised. She looked at Ruoyu and didn't know what to say. After a few seconds of silence, Tian calmed down and asked in a deep voice, May I ask why? I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Ruoyu said calmly. Tian frowned slightly. His eyes flickered as he said indifferently, Then I'm sorry. I won't help you kill anyone. Nie Tian was not a tool to kill people. Even if the monster god flower was tempting enough, he wouldn't agree to help others kill people. Unless he was sure that the person he wanted to kill was someone who deserved to die. Even if no one asked him to, he would still kill that person. Yu Gui was the master of Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, but that didn't mean that his son, Yu Tianjin, deserved to die. 5 Poison Blood Infant. Ruo Yu seemed to have expected Nie Tian's answer. She didn't find it strange and said a name. Nie Tian was surprised and asked, "How do you know about the 5 Poison Blood Infant?" At the same time, Nie Tian released a cold chi. If Ruo Yu was related to the 5 Poison Blood Infant, then even if he was Rui Qianyu's brother, Nie Tian wouldn't let him go. "Don't be impulsive," Ruo Yu said calmly. "I want to tell you that Yu Tianjin provided the hundreds of thousands of babies that Wu Feng used to make the 5 Poison Blood Infant." Nie Tian frowned and stared at Ruo Yu's eyes to see if she was lying. If Yu Tianjin had really done what True Case Rain had said, then he would be a dead man. After a long moment of silence, Nie Tian said, "Give me the demon god flower." True Rain handed the demonic god flower to Nie Tian. Her eyes flickered as she said, "Aren't you going to ask how strong Yu Tianjin is?" "There's no need." Nie Tian put away the demon god flower and said, "You just need to tell me, where is he now?" Nie Tian didn't care about Yu Tianjin's strength, identity, or background. He only knew that this person was dead for sure. Rain was taken aback for a moment before asking, "Do you want to kill someone right now?" "What do you think?" Nie Tian asked back. "It was just killing a person. Did he have to wait until next year?" Ru Jinsu was slightly speechless and said, "Yu Tianjin cannot die now, you must kill him at the Meru martial meet." "Why?" Nie Tian was taken aback for a moment. It was a little strange. To kill someone at the Meru martial meet, this was strange. "Because I want the whole world to know that you killed him," Ruo Jinsu said indifferently. Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He said indifferently, "This reason, I accept." "Very well, then it's a deal. Goodbye." Ruo Jinsu nodded with a smile and turned to leave. "Ruo Jinsu." Nie Tian shouted at this moment and asked, "Can I ask, what is your relationship with Tawny?" Just now, he had heard Tawny call Ruo Jinsu as mistress. Moreover, she was very respectful, as if she was a subordinate. "Mistress Ruo and I." Tawny was the first to speak, but she was interrupted by Ruo Jinsu. Ruo Jinsu said, "I and Spirit Ghost are collaborators. Lady Shaoli was sent by Spirit Ghost to monitor me." Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Do you think I will believe you?" "Whether you believe me or not is up to you," Ruo Jinsu said and left. Nie Tian looked at Ruo Jinsu's back and frowned. He said in his heart, "Ruo Jinsu, what secrets do you have? Even if you don't tell me, I will reveal them one by one." Nie Tian City Lord, I forgot to tell you, Yu Tianjin is already in Meru Ling capital, and he is together with Qianye. If you are lucky, you will meet him before the Meru martial meet starts. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in Nie Tian's heart. It was Ruo Jinsu. Yu Tianjin is already in Meru Ling capital, and he is together with Rui Qianyu. Nie Tian was stunned. This news made him immediately lose his calm. His figure moved and disappeared in an instant. Meru Ling capital, the biggest restaurant, square restaurant. The restaurant was full of customers. Many people gathered together and discussed spiritedly. The Meru Grand Meeting is about to start. All the geniuses of the 4 regions have arrived. It is bound to be a fierce battle. That's right. I heard that the prizes for the Meru Grand Meeting are very generous. If you can win first place, you will really soar to the sky. It is said that the geniuses of the 4 great families will participate in the Meru martial meet. I wonder who will be able to win first place. In the Meru Grand Meeting, all the competitions were held at the same time. But the most eye-catching one was undoubtedly the Meru martial meet. Just as everyone was discussing, an angry roar suddenly came from the restaurant. "Rui Qianyu, what do you want before you are willing to talk to me?" His enraged voice was like a thunderclap. Everyone felt a roar in their ears. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a black-faced young man roaring at a woman in white. The woman in white sat there calmly. Her expression was indifferent, as if she did not hear the roar of the person in front of her. She looked to be around 20 years old. Just sitting there made people have an urge to suffocate. She was too beautiful. It was just that her whole body emitted a cold aura, like an ice-cold snow mountain. Looking at the black-faced young man again, his appearance was passable. It was just that his skin was dark, which made people feel uncomfortable. The crowd compared the appearance of the black-faced young man and the woman in white, and couldn't help but sigh. "Damn it, the little cabbage has been taken by a pig." Sigh. A flower stuck in cow dung. The key is that this lump of cow dung doesn't know how to cherish it. He's shouting here. He's simply attracting hatred. The black-faced young man frowned. His whole body erupted with a tyrannical aura. Like a gust of wind, it swept out in all directions. The tables and chairs around him swayed and flew up. After landing on the ground, they turned into splinters. What a strong aura! The crowd's eyes narrowed. Their faces were aghast. Just by relying on the aura of his whole body, he had destroyed all the tables and chairs. The black-faced young man was very strong. "Whoever dares to speak again, die!" The black-faced young man roared. The aura of his whole body was tyrannical and cold. The crowd's heart trembled. They did not dare to speak anymore. If Nye Tian was here, he would immediately recognize that this woman in white was no one else but Rui Qianyu. Chapter 593. Rui Qianyu sat there indifferently, as if everything around her had nothing to do with her. Her eyes were extremely cold, causing people's hearts to tremble and immediately stay away from her. "Rui Qianyu, don't think that just because you are Ruoyu Zhensu's sister, I won't dare to touch you. If you push me too far, I'll do the same to you." Yu Tianjin's eyes were filled with anger, like a wild beast that couldn't find a target to vent his anger on. A few months ago, Yu Tianjin went to see Rui Qianyu and accidentally saw Rui Qianyu. At first glance, he was shocked and wanted to pursue her. Unfortunately, Rui Qianyu was like a block of ice that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. No matter what he did, she wouldn't say a word to him. He chased after Rui Qianyu all the way to Sumi Ling capital, and at the same time, to participate in the Sumi martial meet. This time, coming to the Shumi spirit capital, Yu Tianjin was bound to obtain the championship of the Shumi martial meet. As for the three monsters of Sumi Ling capital, in his eyes, they were all trash, not worth mentioning. "Rui Qianyu, do you have someone you like? Tell me who he is, and I'll kill him." Seeing that Rui Qianyu still didn't speak, Yu Tianjin roared, his expression becoming more and more frenzied. Rui Qianyu was as cold as ice, not saying a word. "You!" At this time, a discordant voice rang out. A figure stood out and said, "Charcoal Head, Charcoal Head, this lady doesn't like you. Why are you pestering me? If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for being impolite." Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. The person who had spoken was a handsome young man in his 20s. He looked very decent, but when his gaze inadvertently swept over Raindrop Thousand Leaves, an unconcealable thirst appeared in his eyes. Obviously, this person wanted to be a hero to save the beauty and win her heart. Yu Tianjin's expression darkened and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He chuckled and said, "This young master has a belly full of anger and nowhere to vent it, and here you are. I want to see how much weight you have to dare to jump out and act like a big shot." "Humph." The young man sneered and released his aura. In an instant, an enormous force filled the entire restaurant. Everyone felt this immense power, and their hearts trembled violently. They exclaimed, "Divine Wheel Space." This young man actually released a divine wheel space. He was a divine wheel expert. No one would have thought that this young man would actually reach the spirit wheel realm. A warrior of the spirit wheel realm? Yu Tianjin was slightly stunned. The corner of his mouth twitched, revealing a playful smile. Charcoal head, let's settle this in one move. Whoever wins will get this beauty. How about it? The handsome young man smiled sinisterly. His eyes scanned Rui Qianyu from head to toe, revealing a fiery expression. Rui Qianyu, did you hear that? He is a warrior of the spirit wheel realm. If I win against him, you will be mine. Yu Tianjin chuckled, appearing very confident. Rui Qianyu sat there without any change in her expression. Yu Tianjin frowned and immediately looked at the handsome young man. In a loud voice, he said, I, Yu Tianjin, do not fight nameless people. Tell me your name. Dragon Fifth, the handsome young man said indifferently. His eyes were full of disdain. Dragon Fifth. At this moment, an elder in cyan beside Dragon Fifth suddenly warned, This person is extraordinary. Don't be careless. Dragon Fifth glanced at the elder in cyan and said indifferently, Don't worry, I know what to do. The elder in cyan nodded slightly, but his gaze towards Yu Tianjin became more cautious. No one knew what he was thinking. Yu Tianjin noticed the existence of the elder in cyan. He glanced at him and his eyes narrowed slightly. Then he chuckled and said, Old mister, don't worry. I will not hurt him. Yu Tianjin looked rough, but in fact, he was sinister. He could see that the elder in cyan was extraordinary, so he did not dare to be too arrogant. Arrogant! Dragon Fifth's eyes darkened and he shouted coldly. His whole body's aura suddenly soared. What a strong aura! The crowd trembled. They felt the unparalleled aura and retreated one after another. At this moment, the steward of the restaurant came over. Seeing the situation, he did not dare to step forward and hurriedly ran back to ask the steward. The strength of the first level of the spirit wheel is indeed strong. Unfortunately, in front of me, it is not enough. Yu Tianjin chuckled. The disdain in his eyes intensified. He did not take Dragon Fifth seriously at all. This person is so arrogant. He is not even afraid of a warrior of the spirit wheel realm. The crowd was shocked. Yu Tianjin did not look very old. He was about 25 or 26 years old. Could it be that his strength was also of the spirit wheel realm? This was too terrifying. In the blink of an eye, 2 warriors of the spirit wheel realm in their 20s had appeared. How could the geniuses of Sumi Ling City endure this? Seeing that Yu Tianjin didn't put him in his eyes at all, Dragon Fifth was instantly enraged. The aura around his body rose once more. Then, his figure moved and he threw a palm out. A copious amount of palm shadows rolled out from the void and smashed towards Yu Tianjin. Too weak. Facing Dragon Fifth's palm, Yu Tianjin sneered. He raised his arm and directly punched out. The overbearing fist shadow was cold and violent, like a dragon coming out of the sea. Boom! In the void, the palm shadow and the fist shadow collided. However, the power of the palm shadow was obviously much weaker. It was directly smashed by the fist shadow. A tyrannical force pressed towards Dragon Fifth. Bang! With a muffled sound, Dragon Fifth directly flew out. After landing, he almost could not stand. Dragon Fifth steadied his body. He was not injured, but his face was very ugly. There was a lump of stuffy air in his chest that he could not breathe out. Originally, he wanted to be a hero to save the beauty. Instead, he was punched out. This person was really thrown into the toilet. You lost. Yu Tianjin glanced at Dragon Fifth. Immediately, his eyes turned to Rui Qianyu and said, She is mine. Dragon Fifth's eyes were bloodshot. He could not help but look at the old man in green behind him. However, the old man had no intention of making a move. Instead, he stood up, slightly bowed to Yu Tianjin and said, Thank you for being merciful. Being merciful? When the crowd heard this, they were shocked. Just now, Yu Tianjin not only defeated Dragon Fifth, but also showed mercy. My God, if he had used his full strength, wouldn't Dragon Fifth die on the spot? Dragon Fifth was already at the first tier of the spirit wheel. How terrifying was Yu Tianjin's strength! The crowd was stunned and looked at Yu Tianjin with even more fear. It's so lively here. Just when the crowd was stunned, an extremely disharmonious voice with a strong sense of ridicule was heard. The crowd was stunned. They turned to look at the person who spoke. It was actually a young man of 17 or 18 years old. Chapter 594. When Rui Qinyu saw Nie Tian suddenly appear, there was a hint of expression on her cold face. Yu Tianjin just happened to notice this scene. Yu Tianjin then looked at Nie Tian with undisguised murderous intent in his eyes. He had been following Rui Qinyu for a few days, and the latter had not said a word. However, when Nie Tian came, she not only spoke, but even her expression changed. She even called out Nie Tian's name. This was unacceptable to Yu Tianjin. A beautiful woman like Rui Qinyu should be with a peerless genius like Yu Tianjin. Who was Nie Tian? Why did he make Rui Qinyu speak and get excited? Because of Rui Qinyu's attitude toward Nie Tian, Yu Tianjin had murderous intent in his heart. Nie Tian glanced at Yu Tianjin, but it was only for a moment. Then, his eyes stopped on Dragon Fifth and finally fell on the elder in green behind Dragon Fifth. The elder in green was skinny and had a sharp gaze. His strength was actually at the 6th level of the divine wheel, which was very terrifying. Among all the experts Nie Tian had met, only Zhang Tingyin of the Elixir Martial Hall, Meng Fanchen, the president of the Alchemists Guild, and Mo Zhaojing, the patriarch of the Mo clan, could suppress him. With such strength, he could easily become an inner court elder in any of the great clans. At this moment, the elder in green was also looking at Nie Tian. A cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He then said, Nie Tian, Tianluo City Lord? Nie Tian noticed the other party's murderous intent, and his eyes narrowed slightly. They clearly met for the first time. Why did he have such an inexplicable murderous intent? Nie Tian, Tianluo City Lord. When the crowd heard the elder in green mention Nie Tian's identity, the entire restaurant suddenly became silent. This name was too resounding. Right now, it was already the most famous name in Shumi's spirit capital. Just the title of a red-cloved elder was enough to make people revere him. Nie Tian didn't care about the crowd's reaction. Instead, he stared at the cyan-robed old man and asked with a faint smile, "Do we know each other?" The green-robed old man's body trembled inexplicably, as if he was suppressing his rage. He didn't say anything and instead transmitted his voice to Nie Tian, Dragon Sky. Dragon Sky. Hearing this name, Nie Tian's expression stiffened slightly. He already understood a little. The green-robed old man in front of him must have a close relationship with Long Sky. No wonder he could not hide his killing intent the moment he saw Nie Tian. My name is Shangguan Yen. Long Sky is my disciple. I will retrieve his dragon-armed saber for him. The green-robed old man directly said his name. His tone was low and cold, but it was full of dominance. At the same time, it also contained a strong sense of threat. Of course, his words were only transmitted to Nie Tian. No one else knew. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched coldly. He also transmitted his voice, "Very good. It seems that you are also from Heaven Burial Association. I really want to know where Wei Yangzi is." Nie Tian already knew that Long Sky was from Heaven Burial Association. Since Shangguan Yen was Long Sky's teacher, he was naturally from Heaven Burial Association as well. Heaven Burial Association was the only underground organization in the 3,000 small worlds in the land of bloody massacre. It was rumored that they were even more terrifying than Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. Elderly, who was by Rui Qinyu's side, had died at the hands of Wei Yangzi. This hatred had always been engraved in Nie Tian's mind. He originally wanted to wait until he was strong enough before finding trouble with Heaven Burial Association. However, since the latter had come, he naturally would not run away. He is my junior brother. Why are you looking for him? Shangguan Yen was slightly stunned. He did not expect Nye Tian to know that he was from Heaven Burial Association. Revenge. Nye Tianling replied coldly. The corner of Shangguan Yan's mouth involuntarily curled up. He revealed complete contempt and mocked, with just you. He naturally perceived that Nye Tian's strength was at the 6th level of true essence. It was very heaven-defying for Nye Tian to be able to reach this kind of strength at his age. However, this strength was simply not enough in Shangguan Yan's eyes. With just me. Nye Tian's reply was very simple. It was filled with overbearing confidence. Shangguan Yan felt the determination in Nye Tian's eyes. His gaze actually trembled. Who would say domineering words? However, the determination in the heart could not be faked. What Nye Tian displayed right now was full of determination. Young age, limited strength, but able to be fearless. This kind of mentality cannot be possessed by someone without great determination. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Right at this moment, a deep voice sounded out. Subsequently, an old man stepped out. Everyone looked over. The person who spoke was an old man with a short stature. His clothes were tattered, and he carried a wine gourd. He looked extremely dirty and messy, like an old beggar. Isn't this the old beggar who was begging at the entrance of the restaurant yesterday? Why did he come to join in the fun as well? The crowd was stunned. They immediately recognized the old man's identity and roared with laughter. Nye Tian looked at the old man. He noticed that there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of origin energy around the old man. However, the space around the old man seemed to have solidified. Nothing could think of approaching his body. This old man's strength is unfathomable. Nye Tian's gaze trembled. He made a guess in his heart. It's you. Shangguan Yen stared at the old man for a long time. Finally, he thought of a person. His expression became astonished as he said in astonishment, Xian Wuji. Shangguan Yen, since you know it's me, why haven't you scrammed? Xian Wuji shouted coldly. His body shook slightly, and the filth on his body instantly disappeared. In an instant, he transformed from a beggar into a grandmaster. Shangguan Yen looked at Xian Wuji. He wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare. His expression was extremely ugly. What? Do you still want I to make a move? Xian Wuji said calmly, and a mighty force swept over. Everyone felt their divine senses tremble, and their expressions changed abruptly. Pooh! Shangguan Yan's face flushed red. In the end, he couldn't bear this force. His body swayed, and he actually vomited a mouthful of blood. What's going on? The crowd's gaze trembled. They didn't know what had happened. Shangguan Yan's strength made even Yu Tianjin fear him. Why was he standing there and vomiting blood for no reason? Nye Tian looked at Xian Wuji. He was puzzled in his heart. Who is this person? How can his strength be so tyrannical? He seems to be even stronger than Zhang Tingyin and Meng Fanchen. Is there another expert in Su Mi Ling who is comparable to Tang Hao and Mo Zhaojing? Third uncle, are you all right? When Dragon Fifth saw Shangguan Yen suddenly vomiting blood, he was so scared that his face turned pale. He hurriedly went up to support him. Let's go, Shangguan Yen said coldly. He didn't dare to stay any longer and turned to leave. At least he's tactful. Xian Wuji smiled faintly. He retracted his chi and immediately looked at Nye Tian. He said, Nye Tian, are you the new red-cloved elder who joined the guild? Nye Tian nodded and said, Old Xian is a member of the guild. Xian Wuji directly called the Alchemist Guild a guild. This meant that he was a member of the Alchemist Guild. Chapter 595. Nye Tian couldn't guess Xian Wuji's identity, and his expression became even more confused. Yu Tianjin was even more confused, and at the same time, his eyes revealed an unconcealable fear. He was very clear about Shang Guanyan's strength, but he was actually forced to vomit blood by Xian Wuji. It was really strange. Xian Wuji smiled faintly, seeing what Nie Tian was thinking, and said, "You can't guess my identity, but you have something I'm interested in." And Nie Tian couldn't help but be surprised. He and Xian Wuji had only met by chance. How could he have something that the latter was interested in? But he didn't ask and said, "Old Xian, let me deal with something first, you can talk about it later, okay?" Xian Wuji obviously had no malicious intent, so Nie Tian didn't hesitate. "Okay." Xian Wuji agreed faintly, and then his eyes fell on Yu Tianjin, who was quite frightened. Nie Tian walked towards Rui Qinyu, sat down calmly, and smiled faintly. "Qinya, long time no see." In fact, the two had only been separated for a dozen days, and Rui Qinyu's strength had risen again, reaching the 9th level of true essence. This strength, even in Shumi's spirit capital, was very strong. Rui Qinyu's expression became cold again, and a pair of strange blue and red eyes flashed, looking at Nie Tian, and said directly, "Help me get rid of this person." This person, of course, referred to Yu Tianjin. "No problem." Nie Tian smiled bitterly, nodding slightly. It seemed that Rui Qinyu had been troubled by Yu Tianjin these days, or else she wouldn't have said it directly. "Thank you," Rui Qinyu said coldly, and then slowly took a sip of tea, as if thinking for a moment, and then asked, "Where do you live?" "Hong Yi Elder Gu Yi's mansion." Nie Tian replied. "I'll look for you when I have time. Goodbye." Rui Qinyu stood up and left the restaurant. Nie Tian was already familiar with Rui Qinyu's coldness. She had too much hatred for him. If she couldn't let go of this hatred, she would never be happy. "Rui Qinyu, where are you going?" Seeing that Rui Qinyu was about to leave, Yu Tianjin immediately reacted and wanted to follow her. "Yu Tianjin, you can't leave." Nie Tian immediately stood up and shouted cold. "Courting death." Yu Tianjin spun around to look at Nie Tian. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he punched out. A beam of fist light shot out towards Nie Tian. He already hated Nie Tian to the core. He was sure that the latter was the person Rui Qinyu liked. Otherwise, Rui Qinyu wouldn't only talk to Nie Tian. Now that Nie Tian had spoken up to stop him, his hatred for Nie Tian grew even more intense. Therefore, he directly attacked, intending to kill Nie Tian. Yu Tianjin's attack was overbearing and ruthless. He didn't care about Nie Tian's identity at all. Yu Tianjin didn't care about the Hong Yi Elder of the Alchemist Guild. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. His body trembled and a terrifying sword intent burst out. However, before he could make a move, a vast and boundless force instantly descended and directly blocked the terrifying fist radiance. "You want to hurt the Hong Yi Elder of the Guild in front of I? Do you think I'm invisible?" Xian Wuji shouted coldly. His whole body's aura enveloped Yu Tianjin. Yu Tianjin suddenly felt a strong pressure that made it hard for him to breathe. "Lord Jun!" Yu Tianjin's face turned red, but he held his breath and shouted. Xian Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Don't shout. If I don't kill you, the person secretly protecting you won't dare to come out." Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. There was actually someone secretly protecting Yu Tianjin. Even he didn't notice the existence of this person. He had already sensed that Yu Tianjin was at the 2nd tier of the Divine Wheel and seemed to be about to break through to the 3rd tier. Although this person was very strong, it wasn't enough to make Nie Tian fear him. After all, he had just killed a warrior at the 2nd tier of the Divine Wheel. But if there was someone secretly protecting Yu Tianjin, then this person's strength must be much higher than Yu Tianjin's, at least above the 5th tier of the Divine Wheel. No wonder Yu Tianjin was so arrogant. It turned out that there was someone secretly protecting him. If Xian Wuji hadn't appeared and Nie Tian and Yu Tianjin fought, and that protector had appeared, Nie Tian would be in danger. No matter how powerful Nie Tian was, he wouldn't be able to fight against a high-level Divine Wheel warrior. Fortunately, Xian Wuji was here. Otherwise, Nye Tian would have probably failed miserably. Yu Tianjin was even more shocked when he saw that Xian Wuji had already sensed someone in the dark and pointed him out. Lord Jun didn't appear. This undoubtedly meant that his strength was below Xian Wuji's, and he didn't dare to show himself. At this moment, unless Xian Wuji wanted to kill Yu Tianjin, this Lord Jun wouldn't show himself. Xian Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Xiao He, Elder Nye Tian won't let you go. I have to trouble you to stay here for a while." Yu Tianjin flew into a rage out of humiliation. He could only watch helplessly as Rainy Thousand Leaves left, unable to move. He was like an enraged rooster, all the feathers on his body standing on end. Nye Tian watched as Rui Qinyu's figure disappeared. After a few minutes, he was sure that it would be difficult to find Yu Tianjin again. Then, he said to Xian Wuji, "Elder Xian, thank you." Xian Wuji nodded and smiled, his aura dissipating. Yu Tianjin couldn't find Rui Qinyu anymore. He stared at Nye Tian coldly with bloodshot eyes. His body was shaking, but he didn't dare to do anything. He shouted angrily, "Bastard, don't let me see you again." After that, he turned around angrily. "Wait!" Nye Tian flashed and appeared in front of Yu Tianjin. He was only a few meters away from Yu Tianjin. Nye Tian's eyes flashed with coldness. He said a name word by word, "5 poison blood infant." Yu Tianjin was surprised. "How do you know about the 5 poison blood infant?" Nye Tian saw his reaction. The coldness in his eyes intensified. He asked coldly, "You provided the babies that Wu Feng used?" Yu Tianjin couldn't hide his surprise. Then, a fierce expression appeared on his face. He said indifferently, "So what? It's you. You're going to die." Nye Tian's body was as cold as ice. His eyes were full of anger. "Just you?" Yu Tianjin sneered. Then, he looked at Xian Wuji. His expression clearly said, "If it weren't for him, you would already be a corpse." Nye Tian ignored his mockery and said cold, "At the summer martial meet, you and I will fight to the death. We won't stop until one of us is dead." Yu Tianjin's eyes flickered with extreme contempt. He didn't expect that a warrior in the 6th tier of the spiritual wheel realm would dare to challenge a warrior in the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel realm. Wasn't he courting death? Okay. Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Tianjin agreed. As far as he was concerned, Nye Tian was courting death. After that, Yu Tianjin didn't stay any longer. He turned around and left. Nye Tian didn't try to stop him. Instead, he stared at the man's back, his eyes filled with killing intent. Chapter 596. Xian Wuji furrowed his brows when he heard that Nye Tian and Yu Tianjin were going to fight to the death. "Elder Nye Tian, do you really want to fight to the death with him?" Although Xian Wuji didn't know what Nye Tian and Yu Tianjin were talking about, he could tell that Yu Tianjin must have done something to infuriate Nye Tian. That was why they were fighting to the death. However, Nye Tian's strength was much weaker than Yu Tianjin's, so Xian Wuji couldn't help but worry for him. Nye Tian nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "Yeah." After a while, Nye Tian calmed down and said, "Elder Xian, there are too many people here. Let's find another place to talk." The two left the square restaurant and came to a remote place. "There's no one else here," Nye Tian said, seeing the worry in Elder Xian's eyes. "If you have something to say, just say it." Xian Wuji exhaled and his expression became serious, even panicked. After a moment of silence, he finally opened his mouth. "Elder Nye Tian, you have an interspatial ring on you. Where did you get it?" "Interspatial ring?" Nye Tian was stunned and didn't know how to react. "Elder Xian, I have many interspatial rings on me. Which one are you talking about?" Almost every time Nye Tian killed a person, he would loot everything from them. Therefore, he had too many interspatial rings on him. Xian Wuji paid attention to Nie Tian just because of one interspatial ring. This meant that the interspatial ring was very important to him. I'm talking about the spiritual dragon ring, Xian Wuji said nervously. Spiritual dragon ring? Nie Tian still didn't understand. Xian Wuji calmed himself down and said, the interspatial ring with a spiritual dragon carved on it. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. An interspatial ring appeared in his hand. Looking at it, there was indeed a lifelike little dragon carved on it. This ring was the one that the previous president of the Alchemists' Guild, Hu Yuan, had given to Nie Tian before he died. He had instructed Nie Tian to pass it to Meng Fanchen no matter what. At that time, Nie Tian did not pay much attention to it. Now that he sensed the ring, there was actually a strong dragon chi within it. It seemed to be some kind of seal. Before Hu Yuan died, he had entrusted the ring to Nie Tian. This clearly showed that this was no ordinary ring. It really is the spiritual dragon ring. Seeing the ring in Nie Tian's hand, Xian Wuji's expression became heated, but then he panicked and asked, "Where did you get this ring?" Nie Tian's eyes narrowed when he saw Xian Wuji's reaction. He asked, "You know Lord Hu Yuan?" "Brother Hua." Xian Wuji's face suddenly changed when he heard Hu Yuan's name. He suddenly grabbed Nie Tian's shoulders and almost roared, "Did Big Brother Hui give you that ring? Where is he now?" The current Xian Wuji was almost crazy. He no longer had the bearing of a master. Nie Tian saw his reaction and had a guess about his identity. Xian Wuji was obviously a member of the Alchemists' Guild. He even called Meng Fanchen by his name. His status must be very high. Therefore, Nie Tian concluded that Xian Wuji's identity was very likely to be the previous hall master of the Danwu Hall. This identity not only matched Xian Wuji's strength, but also his age. Xian Wuji cared so much about Hu Yuan. This meant that the relationship between the two was extraordinary. Elder Xian, calm down. Nie Tian was afraid that Xian Wuji couldn't accept the fact that Hu Yuan was dead, so he yelled for him to calm down. Xian Wuji's expression froze for a moment. He seemed to have guessed something. Emptiness appeared in his eyes as if he had lost all his faith. His body suddenly swayed and he almost fell. He said in a daze, "Brother Hua, he's dead." Hu Yuan never left the spiritual dragon ring. Now that it was in Nie Tian's hand, it undoubtedly meant that he was dead. Nie Tian had a sorrowful expression as he nodded. Xian Wuji was stunned on the spot. He seemed to have aged several decades in an instant as if he had gone mad. After a long time, he finally had a slight reaction. His eyes looked normal as he asked, "What did Brother Hua say before he died?" "Before Elder Hua died, he asked me to hand the spiritual dragon ring to President Meng Fanchen," Nie Tian said truthfully. "Right." Xian Wuji seemed to have suddenly thought of something. There was a trace of excitement in his eyes as he said, "Let's go find Meng Fanchen now." After saying that, Xian Wuji didn't care about Nie Tian's reaction. He turned around and sprinted towards the Alchemists' Guild. Nie Tian had a puzzled expression. What exactly was this spiritual dragon ring? Was it really that important? Without giving it much thought, Nie Tian hurried after them. A moment later, the two arrived at the Alchemists' Guild. The guards of the guild recognized Nie Tian and didn't stop him. Nie Tian. Just as they arrived at the guild hall, a crisp voice sounded and Meng Xueqing rushed over excitedly. Behind Meng Xueqing were two familiar figures. They were Yang Kai and Yang Zixiao. Elder Nie Tian. Yang Kai was very happy when he saw Nie Tian's figure and strode over. Nie Tian saw that Yang Zixiao's complexion had improved a lot. It seemed that the 6 Yang extremes had been effective. The 100 void qi in his body had been suppressed. "Xiao come and greet your benefactor," Yang Kai shouted. He was in a very good mood. Yang Zixiao followed and bowed deeply to Nie Tian, respectfully saying, "Zixiao thanks benefactor." Nie Tian nodded lightly and said to Yang Kai, "Old Yang, I have an important matter to discuss with President Meng. As for Yang Zixiao's matter, I will look for you in a few days. Yang Zixiao's 100 void physique was only temporarily suppressed. If he wanted to truly control it, it would depend on his own willpower. Most importantly, he had to cultivate a martial art that could restrain the 100 void qi. Currently, Nie Tian didn't have a suitable martial art. Yang Kai nodded and noticed Xian Wuji's existence. His face stiffened and he said in shock, "Hall Master Xian." Nie Tian guessed correctly. Xian Wuji was the former hall master of the Dan Wu Hall. Xian Wuji ignored Yang Kai and walked directly to the inner hall of the guild hall. "Elder Nie Tian, what happened?" Yang Kai was startled and looked at Nie Tian. "Old Yang, old Xian and I have something to discuss with President Meng. We don't have time to explain," Nie Tian said and quickly followed. The two figures quickly arrived at the inner hall. At this moment, Meng Fanchen was sitting in the center of the inner hall. When he saw Nie Tian walking over, he immediately shouted, "Elder Nie Tian, you are finally back." Nie Tian had been in Peaceful City for many days. Meng Fanchen was still worried about him just now. Of course, he was happy to see him now. But when Meng Fanchen saw the face beside Nie Tian, the smile on his face froze. Then, he became even more happy. "Uncle Xian." Meng Fanchen walked over and was very excited. Xian Wuji's face was solemn. He said in a deep voice, "Nie Tian, take out the spirit dragon ring." Nie Tian nodded slightly and took out the spirit dragon ring. It floated above his palm. Chapter 597. When Meng Fanchen saw that Nie Tian was actually holding the spirit dragon ring in his hand, his expression suddenly became blank. Nie Tian frowned slightly and gave him enough time. After a while, when Meng Fanchen had calmed down a little, Nie Tian walked forward and handed the spiritual dragon ring to him without saying a word. Meng Fanchen took the spiritual dragon ring with both hands and tears streamed down his face. He hesitated for a long time before he finally mustered up his courage and said with a trembling voice, "Teacher." Meng Fanchen choked with sobs before he could finish his sentence. His mouth was still open, but he couldn't make a sound. "Elder Hora, let's go." Nie Tian nodded helplessly and said in a deep voice, "Teacher." Meng Fanchen wailed. His body swayed and he almost fell. Although Meng Fanchen had expected this when he saw the spiritual dragon ring, he still couldn't accept the news when he heard it with his own ears. "President Meng, I'm sorry for your loss." Nie Tian quickly stepped forward and supported Meng Fanchen. In the face of extreme pain, even a heavenly emperor powerhouse wouldn't be able to bear it. Xian Wuji was also grief-stricken and didn't say a word for a long time. The short yet long silence caused the air to be filled with sorrow. After a while, Meng Fanchen's expression softened a little. He looked at the spiritual dragon ring in his hand with anger in his eyes and said, "Teacher was a spirit wheel powerhouse and was only a few decades away from the end of his life. Why did he die for no reason? Elder Nie Tian, please tell me what happened." Nie Tian let out a deep breath and thought about how to tell the truth. "Teacher was killed, right?" Meng Fanchen roared when he saw Nie Tian's expression. "Who did it?" "The teacher was like a father, and the hatred of the person who killed him was absolutely irreconcilable." "Wu Feng," Nie Tian spat out 2 words. It was a very calm voice, but it was like thunder in Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchen's ears, causing their expressions to stiffen. "Be *****. Meng Fanchen's voice suddenly resounded and echoed in the hall, sounding empty and sorrowful. "Ungrateful bastard!" Xian Wuji let out a deep roar. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was so gloomy that it was dripping water. Obviously, he was extremely furious. Wu Feng was Huo Yuan's disciple, but he had committed the crime of killing his own master. This was a crime that the heavens could not tolerate. After a long time, when Meng Fanchen and Xian Wuji had calmed down, Nie Tian told them everything that had happened in the barren Sky City. "Ling Xian Pavilion, it's the Ling Xian Pavilion again." Meng Fanchen became extremely agitated after he heard that. He roared furiously, "The Alchemist Guild and the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion are irreconcilable enemies." The pavilion master of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, Nether Ghost, helped Wu Feng steal the 5 poison scripture from Huiyuan, helped Wu Feng recover his Yuan meridians, and even provided him with a baby to refine the 5 poison blood infant. Clearly, he played an extremely dishonorable role in Huiyuan's death. Barren Sky City. After listening to Nie Tian's narration, Xian Wuji's expression was somewhat infatuated. He said in a daze, "I didn't expect that Big Brother Hu really built a city in the desolate heaven ancient desert." It turned out that Huiyuan and Xian Wuji had an agreement. After the two of them left the Alchemist Guild, they would go to a remote place and build a city of their own. They would be isolated from the world and live a peaceful life. Unfortunately, the desolate Sky City had just been built when Huiyuan died. It was truly a pity. Teacher's divine sense is in the spiritual dragon ring. I wonder what he left behind? Meng Fanchen suddenly said with a slightly agitated expression. "I'll take my leave." Compared to Meng Fanchen and Xian Wuji, Nie Tian was an outsider after all. It was not appropriate for him to stay and watch Huiyuan's last words. "Elder Nie Tian." Meng Fanchen called out to him at this time, "You're the person that teacher told me to stay before he died, you can stay." Nie Tian thought for a moment and nodded slightly. He could faintly feel that the spiritual dragon ring was not an ordinary spatial ring. The little dragon on it was vivid and lifelike, as if it was alive. There was a strong dragon chi circulating around it, and there was also a sealing aura on it. Nie Tian felt that he had seen the little dragon on the spiritual dragon ring somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. Meng Fanchen took out the spiritual dragon ring and inserted a strand of his divine sense into it. The ring sensed something and a white light surged out, condensing into an illusory human figure in the air. It was Huiyuan's figure. "Teacher." Meng Fanchen was moved and knelt in front of Huiyuan. Huiyuan had a faint smile on his face. He raised his hand slightly and signaled for Meng Fanchen to stand up. "Fanchen, get up." "Yes." Meng Fanchen stood up respectfully, his eyes filled with tears. The illusory figure in front of him was the last strand of Huiyuan's divine sense, and it would disappear very soon. This was the last time he saw his teacher's face, so how could he not be sad? "Brother Xian, I didn't expect you to be here too." Huiyuan was slightly moved when he saw Xian Wuji. He was very happy. "Big Brother Hua!" Xian Wuji cried sorrowfully, tears rolling down his face silently. The two of them had known each other for hundreds of years. They weren't brothers, but they were closer than brothers. Huiyuan nodded slightly. He knew that he couldn't exist for too long, so he made a long story short. "Brother Xian, I hope you can go to the barren Sky City and replace me as the city lord." "How can I not follow Big Brother's order?" Xian Wuji's voice was choked with emotions. Huiyuan smiled and looked at Meng Fanchen. "Fanchen, I regret not being able to get rid of that evil disciple of mine, Wu Feng. I have always believed that I have a clear conscience, but I was biased in dealing with Wu Feng's matter. My momentary benevolence back then led to a huge disaster. I have to bear half of the responsibility for what Wu Feng did." Huiyuan's expression turned solemn as he spoke to this point. He almost couldn't continue. "Teacher." Meng Fanchen was moved and said in a sorrowful tone, "I am Wu Feng's senior brother. I am also responsible for his mistake. Don't worry, teacher. I will definitely kill Wu Feng and clean up the sect." Huiyuan took a deep breath and nodded slightly. "Fanchen, with your guarantee, I will be happy in the underworld." After saying these words, Huiyuan's gaze finally fell on Nie Tian, a slightly strange expression on his face. "Elder Hua, if you have something to say, please say it." Nie Tian bowed and said after seeing Huiyuan's expression. Huiyuan seemed to hesitate for a while, but he still said, "You have dragon chi on you. I never had the chance to ask you about it. I want to ask now, but I don't have the chance anymore. I can feel that you are the master that the Spirit Dragon Ring has been looking for. I wanted to ask Fanchon to give the Spirit Dragon Ring to you, but since you are here, I will give it to you personally. After saying this, the Spirit Dragon Ring floated in front of Nie Tian. This. Nie Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He was a little confused and didn't know what was going on. However, Huiyuan's consciousness had already dimmed. The last trace of a smile disappeared, and the consciousness completely disappeared from the space. You are the master of the Spirit Dragon Ring. After Huiyuan's consciousness completely disappeared, Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchon were also shocked and said at the same time. Nie Tian smiled bitterly and shook his head. I don't know what is going on either. Chapter 598. When Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchon saw the sudden change in Nie Tian's expression, they cried out in surprise. At the same time, they asked, Elder Nie Tian, what did you remember? Nie Tian's expression stiffened for a few seconds. After a while, he recovered and said with a faint smile, I remember where I saw the little dragon on this ring. After he finished speaking, a ball of green liquid gushed out from Nie Tian's palm. Instantly, a wave of pure dragon chi was released and filled the entire hall. What a powerful dragon chi! Xian Wuji cried out in surprise. He looked at the green liquid on Nie Tian's palm with a shocked expression. Elder Nie Tian, what is this thing? Meng Fanchon was also shocked. Her gaze focused on the green liquid. Nie Tian raised the corner of his mouth slightly, but did not speak. The green liquid in his palm circulated in the air and turned into a little dark green dragon. The little dark green dragon was only half a meter long, but it was extremely real. Dragon horns, dragon whiskers, dragon eyes, dragon head, dragon scales, dragon claws, dragon tail, every part of the dragon could be seen clearly. This was a real dragon. Although the little dark green dragon's body was a little exquisite, the dragon chi around its body was extremely rich and intimidating. This little dark green dragon was given to Nie Tian by Queen Medusa when he was leaving the chaotic abyss. It allowed him to enter the chaotic abyss at any time. When the little dark green dragon appeared, it caused the dragon scale energy in Nie Tian's body to become active. This made him believe that the little dark green dragon was closely related to the dragon spring vein he was looking for. However, Queen Medusa was not willing to tell him where the little dark green dragon came from. Originally, Nie Tian wanted to ask Dragon Soul Emperor Shi about this matter when he returned to Heaven Luo City. However, he did not have the opportunity to go back to Heaven Luo City, so this matter was temporarily put aside. Who would have thought that he would find the spiritual dragon ring? And the little dragon carved on the exquisite ring was exactly the same as the little dark green dragon. This. Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchon looked at the little dark green dragon in the sky. For a moment they were stunned and speechless. Nie Tian's divine sense moved, and the little dark green dragon's body moved, circling around the spirit dragon ring, and its body actually became much smaller. It swam one more time and became smaller again. After a few laps, the little dark green dragon turned into a pocket-sized one. It was almost the same size as the little dragon carved on the spirit dragon ring. Pooh! The little dark green dragon moved its body and directly entered the spirit dragon ring. The little dragon sculpture on the ring immediately lit up and flickered with a faint green light. What? Nie Tian was shocked by the scene in front of him. He opened his mouth wide, but didn't know what to say. Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchon were even more surprised. They looked at Nie Tian blankly, thinking that he was the one controlling everything. What they didn't know was that Nie Tian didn't even know what was going on. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Nie Tian sent his divine sense into the spirit dragon ring. He was surprised to find that he could clearly sense the powerful seal within it. Layers upon layers of complicated and enormous sealing symbols covered the spirit dragon ring, giving him an extremely shocking feeling. Nie Tian had seen many seal runes in his previous life, but it was the first time he saw such a powerful and complex seal like the one in the spirit dragon ring. He could feel that even the demon-swallowing heaven seal of the netherworld demon Emperor Qi Wutian or the 3,000 seals of the celestial and demon were not as powerful as the seal in the spirit dragon ring. The demon-swallowing heaven seal and the 3,000 seals of the celestial and demon were the 10 most powerful seals. What level is the seal in this spirit dragon ring? How could it be so powerful? Nie Tian's small face was filled with astonishment. The power inside the spirit dragon ring gave him a boundless feeling. It seemed that only the star totem inside the star stone could be compared to the spirit dragon ring. After a long time, Nie Tian finally calmed down. He looked at Meng Fanchen and asked, "Leader Meng, do you know where Senior Hua got the spirit dragon ring?" Meng Fanchen was stunned. Then, she shook her head to show that she didn't know. Then, Nie Tian looked at Xian Wuji. The latter also showed a confused expression. What a pity! Nie Tian was annoyed. Due to the lack of time, he didn't ask where the spirit dragon ring came from. Now it would be difficult to find out. When Xian Wuji saw Nie Tian's reaction, he could not help but frown and ask, "Elder Nie Tian, what is going on? What was that little dark green dragon just now?" Meng Fanchen looked at Nie Tian with the same confusion. Nie Tian shook his head with a bitter smile. He didn't hide anything and said honestly, "I got the green dragon liquid by chance in the chaotic abyss. It's probably because I have it that Senior Hor thinks I am the owner of the spirit dragon ring." This. Xian Wuji and Meng Fanchen looked at each other speechlessly when they heard Nie Tian's words. Meng Fanchen was silent for a while and said, "The spirit dragon ring is Master's favorite item. He always carries it with him. He once told me that the spirit dragon ring hides a shocking secret. Unfortunately, he can't unlock it in his life. Elder Nie Tian got the spirit dragon ring, and I hope you can fulfill Master's lifelong wish." "Yes." Xian Wuji nodded and said, "Regardless, Brother Hua already gave you the spirit dragon ring. You are the owner of the spirit dragon ring. If the spirit dragon ring hides a secret, I believe you can unlock it." Nie Tian smiled helplessly. He had to be the owner of the spirit dragon ring even if he didn't want to. Nie Tian examined the spirit dragon ring once again, and discovered that a small emerald dragon was swimming slowly within the enormous seal. Like a small fish swimming on a boundless lake, it stirred up slight ripples, and the enormous seal seemed to be on the verge of breaking. "It's just a little dragon. Even if you swim for 10,000 years, I'm afraid you won't be able to break the seal." Nie Tian smiled bitterly and put away the spirit dragon ring without caring about him. Xian Wuji suddenly said, "Fanchen, Nie Tian, Brother Hua asked me to be the Forsaken Heaven City's city lord. I will leave now." Xian Wuji came to the Sumeru spiritual capital to see the Sumeru pageant. However, since he was entrusted by Huiyuan, he didn't dare to delay and prepared to go to the Forsaken Heaven City immediately. "Yes." Meng Fanchen nodded and said, "Uncle Xian, be careful. If I have time, I will definitely visit the Forsaken Heaven City." Nie Tian also nodded and told Xian Wuji the location of the Forsaken Heaven City. With the latter's ability, he should be able to find it easily. Xian Wuji didn't stay and left immediately. "Uncle Xian, I don't know when we will see each other again." Meng Fanchen looked at Xian Wuji's disappearing figure and felt slightly sad. Nie Tian smiled faintly. Then, he thought of something and said, "President Meng, I need some medicinal ingredients. Do you have them in the guild?" "Elder Nie, please tell us. As long as the guild has them, you can take them." Meng Fanchen said straightforwardly. "Purple spirit fruit, heavenly thorn crow, heavenly gate holly grass, tiger tail flower, and amethyst orchid." When Nie Tian said these 5 medicinal ingredients, Meng Fanchen was shocked. It was because these 5 ingredients were all 6th-level medicinal ingredients and were very valuable. Nie Tian didn't need these ingredients for himself, but for the treatment of the 5 poison blood infant. On the way to the Sumeru spiritual capital, Nie Tian carefully read through the 5 poison scripture. He was sure that these few ingredients might be able to restrain the 5 poison qi. President Meng, if the guild has these ingredients, I will not take them for free. I am willing to buy them at a high price. Nie Tian said directly when he saw Meng Fanchen's reaction. Elder Nie, you misunderstand. Meng Fanchen waved her hand and said, the guild's medicine pavilion has the first 4 ingredients you mentioned. However, we don't have the amethyst orchid. This is difficult. Nie Tian frowned. The amethyst orchid was the core ingredient and must have it. Chapter 599. Nie Tian showed a troubled expression. Without the red bud flowing orchid, the 5 poison blood infant might not survive more than 5 days. After leaving the 5 poison pool, the 5 poison blood infant could survive for half a month at most. The 5 poison blood infant would be away from desolate Heaven City for about 10 days. Hence, Nie Tian only had 5 days left. Xiao Chen needed to find a way to restrain the 5 poison qi within 5 days. The red bud flowing orchid was the core of the 5 herbs, so it was essential. Elder Nie, can you tell me what you need these herbs for? Meng Fanchen asked when he saw Nie Tian's troubled expression, as if he was hesitating about something. Originally, Nie Tian did not want to tell Meng Fanchen about the 5 poison blood infant. However, since Meng Fanchen asked, he did not want to hide it. Hence, he told the truth. Finally, he said, I want this 5 poison blood infant to live. Furthermore, I want it to live like a normal person. The 5 herbs earlier can restrain the 5 poison qi. The red bud flowing orchid is essential. After Meng Fanchen heard Nie Tian's explanation, his expression turned slightly stiff. He had not expected Nie Tian to have a 5 poison blood infant. Although Meng Fanchen did not know what the 5 poison blood infant looked like, based on Nie Tian's explanation, it was something horrifying. There was one more thing that Nie Tian did not tell Meng Fanchen. He already controlled Wu Feng. Nie Tian did not kill Wu Feng because he wanted to use him to uncover the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's plot. Once he found out the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's true goal, Wu Feng would lose his value. Then, Nie Tian would not hesitate to kill him. Nie Tian would not show mercy to people like Wu Feng. Elder Nie Tian, can I take a look at the 5 poison blood infant? Meng Fanchen asked after hesitating for a long time. Sure. Nie Tian saw that Meng Fanchen seemed to have something to say but did not say it. The two did not delay, leaving the Alchemist Association and heading for Gu Yi's residence. After a while, Nie Tian and Meng Fanchen arrived at the Gu residence. The guards of the Gu residence were all Martial Pill Palace guards. Naturally, they recognized Meng Fanchen and Nie Tian, so they let them pass. Gu Yi and the others were in the Gu residence's great hall. When they saw Nie Tian and Meng Fanchen from afar, they came out to welcome them. Brother Nie, you have been in Tranquil City for such a long time, old brother was afraid that something might have happened to you. Gu Yi was very happy to see Nie Tian, and he was filled with cordiality. Nie Tian faintly smiled and said, I've made big brother Gu worry. Everyone chatted and laughed as they entered the main hall and took their seat. President Meng, I just saw Temple Master Xian. Did something happen? Yang Kai asked when he saw Meng Fanchen's solemn expression. Meng Fanchen nodded and briefly explained what had happened to Hu Yuan. He didn't mention Wu Feng. After all, his sect was unfortunate, and it wasn't good to let too many people know about it. Gu Yi, Yang Kai, Yi Linyun, and the others all knew Hu Yuan and couldn't help feeling a bit sad. Meng Fanchen didn't say anything more. He immediately looked at Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded and said to Qiu Shan, Qiu Shan, open the thing on your back. Qiu Shan had already returned to the Gu residence a long time ago. Mo Tai and Mo Rushi had already settled down. They were very safe in the Gu residence. Qiu Shan had been carrying the 5 poison coffin on his back all this time. He covered it with an azure cloth to prevent others from seeing it. Qiu Shan agreed and lifted the azure cloth. The 5 poison coffin appeared before everyone. This is... Although Gu Yi and the others had seen something on Qiu Shan's back that was emitting a faint fluctuation of poison gas, they didn't pay much attention to it. However, when they saw that it was a coffin, they couldn't help but be horrified. "Open it," Nie Tian said to Qiu Shan after scanning everyone with his gaze. Qiu Shan no longer held back. He took a deep breath and directly opened the 5 poison coffin. Ah! The instant the coffin was opened, the 5 poison blood infant let out a cry of pleasant surprise. Its huge eyes suddenly opened. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a cold breath when they saw the thing in the coffin. Their expressions froze, and they were horrified. The 5 poison blood infant was only the size of a baby. It looked like a baby, but it looked very strange. Its limbs were like sharp claws, its head was huge, and its ears were pointy. Its entire body was covered in black patterns, giving off a very evil feeling. Its entire body was a bloody mess. There wasn't a single piece of skin on its body that was intact. It looked very bloody. "So, this is the 5 poison blood infant," Meng Fanchen exclaimed in astonishment after a full 10 seconds had passed. His expression relaxed a little. "Yes." Nie Tian nodded. "Ah." Just as everyone was observing the 5 poison blood infant, its huge eyes flickered as if it was observing everyone. It wanted to move its limbs, but its entire body was restrained by the sword intent, so it couldn't move. Then, it started crying. Its voice was no different from that of an ordinary baby, but it made everyone feel endless misery. "Wu Feng!" Meng Fanchen shouted the name word by word. His body trembled as he roared furiously, "Bastard!" The others had the same sorrowful expression, suppressing their anger. Whoever created the 5 poison blood infant was worse than a pig or a dog. Qiu Shan. Nie Tian glanced at Qiu Shan, who immediately closed the 5 poison coffin. After a long time, the atmosphere in the hall returned to normal. Nie Tian explained the situation of the 5 poison blood infant and emphasized in the end, the redbud orchid is the core of the 5 herbs. It's indispensable. If anyone has it or knows where it can be found, you must tell me. I must get it. Back at the Alchemist Guild, Meng Fanchen seemed to know where the redbud orchid was, but he didn't want to say it. "Elder Nie, if we don't have the redbud orchid, what will happen to the 5 poison blood infant?" Meng Fanchen asked with a frown. "It won't live for more than 5 days, Nie Tian answered honestly. 5 days. Meng Fanchen's expression became cautious. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, "There's a place that might have the redbud orchid." "Where?" Nie Tian blurted out. No matter where it was, he must get it. "President Meng, you can't be talking about." Gu Yi and Yang Kai thought of something at the same time and were stunned. Their expressions became tense. Meng Fanchen nodded and said 2 words, "The black market." "The black market?" Nie Tian's eyes narrowed and he asked in surprise, "Sumi Spirit Capital also has a black market?" The black market. Nie Tian was no stranger to this place. He had been to Blue Cloud City's black market and met Gu Yi there. But he didn't expect that Sumi Spirit Capital also had a black market. Generally speaking, black markets were places that were not controlled by orthodox forces. They were usually forbidden places for ordinary people. For example, Blue Cloud City's black market. Even the Blue Cloud Emperor had to tuck his tail between his legs. Meng Fanchen nodded and said, "The black market is a huge unknown organization. It exists in every city in the 4 domains. It is said that all black markets are controlled by one force. As for who this force is, no one knows." Chapter 600. Seeing Nie Tian stand up, Meng Fanchen and the rest stood up as well. Their eyes were filled with shock and worry. The black market was a forbidden area in the Sumi Spirit Capital. Once entered, even if Nie Tian was a red-robed elder, it would be useless. The black market was not under the control of the Alchemist Guild or the four great families. Elder Nye, it's too dangerous for you to go to the black market alone. I'll send someone to go with you. Meng Fanchen didn't try to persuade Nye Tian. Nye Tian wasn't the kind of person who could be persuaded. Once he decided on something, he wouldn't change his mind. Even if the black market was a mountain of daggers, a sea of fire and a bottomless abyss, he had to go. I'll go with Mr. Nye. Just as Meng Fanchen finished his sentence, Yi Linyun said, Don't worry, old Meng. I'll definitely ensure Mr. Nye's safety. Meng Fanchen nodded. With Yi Linyun by Nye Tian's side, he was much more at ease. All right, let's go. Nye Tian nodded to Yi Linyun and prepared to leave. Big brother Nye Tian. Just as Nye Tian and the rest walked out of the hall, a clear voice rang out. Nye Yuro ran over. Ninth sister. Nye Tian caressed Nyuro's delicate, jade-like face, a happy smile appearing at the corner of his mouth as he teased. You've grown quite a bit taller and fatter. Big brother Nye Tian, you're going out again? Seeing that Nye Tian was about to leave, Nye Yuro had an unhappy expression on her face, her little mouth pouting. Nye Tian said helplessly, I have some matters to attend to. I'll be back soon. All right. Nye Yuro nodded obediently and said seriously, Then when big brother Nye Tian comes back, you must play with Ro. Ro hasn't been with big brother Nye Tian for a long time. Nye Tian nodded helplessly. Then promise. Nye Yuro smiled slyly. I promise. Nye Tian pinched the little girl's cheek and nodded. The crowd burst into laughter when they saw this. A moment later, Nye Tian and Yi Linyun arrived at Sumi Spirit Capital's Wu City. Wu City, every big city had it, and Sumi Spirit Capital was no exception. Looking at the bustling market in front of him, Nye Tian couldn't help but sigh. The martial market in Sumi Spirit City is indeed different. The market in front of him was very big, and it was crowded with people. As far as the eye could see, there was a dense mass of people. However, this place was very quiet. There wasn't much noise, and it seemed to be orderly. Nye Tian arrived at the entrance of the martial market, paid the entrance fee, and directly entered. Sumi Ling City's martial market was the same as normal martial market. It was divided into 5 regions: the medicine market, the soldier market, the beast market, the slave market, and the auction house. Nye Tian and Elder Yi first walked around the medicine market and auction house, hoping to try their luck. Unfortunately, their luck was not good, and they did not find the redbud flowing orchid. Nye Tian and Elder Yi walked around the Wu City and Wu City to try their luck. Unfortunately, they were not lucky and did not find the redbud flowing orchid. Looks like we can only go to the black market. Nye Tian sighed helplessly and prepared to go to the black market. Passing through a dark tunnel, Nye Tian and Elder Yi came to a tall black wall. Nye Tian was slightly startled because in front of him was a dead end. The black wall blocked the way. The Wu City staff smiled and took out a token. He shouted at the black wall, "We have a customer!" Boom! A few seconds later, the black wall shook and automatically separated. A narrow passage appeared, allowing only one person to pass through. Nye Tian took a look and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. In front of him was a passage about 100 meters long. This undoubtedly meant that the black wall was 100 meters thick. It was unbelievable. The black wall seemed to be made of a special material and looked even harder than black iron. Nye Tian estimated that even a heavenly Emperor Realm Master might not be able to break through the black wall. Please. The Wu City staff smiled strangely. He did not want the tip and directly turned to leave. Nye Tian and Elder Yi looked at each other and walked into the passage without hesitation. Entering the passage, Nye Tian immediately felt a suffocating pressure. It turned out that this passage was actually a 10,000 times gravity array. Martial artists below the true element realm could not pass through the black wall. The passage was only 100 meters long. Nie Tian and Elder Yi had to walk for several minutes before they came out. Walking out of the passage, Nie Tian let out a long breath, finally feeling a lot more relaxed. Token. Just as they stood still, two black armored guards walked over and said indifferently. Nie Tian's divine sense swept over the black armored guards, and he could not help but be surprised. They were actually at the true element 5th level. These two were obviously ordinary guards, but they were actually at the true element 5th level. The security of this black market was very strict, no less than that of the Alchemist Guild. The two of you, this is our first time coming to the black market, so there are some rules that we don't understand. May I ask what kind of token you are talking about? Nie Tian said while taking out several spirit nuclei, all of which were rank 4 spirit nuclei and were very valuable. The two black armored guards saw that Nie Tian was very tactful, so they smiled and took the spirit nuclei and said, "Come with us." Under the guidance of the two black armored guards, Nie Tian and Elder Yi came to a seemingly dilapidated old building. After entering, under the guidance of the black armored guards, they spent a lot of money and finally obtained the so-called token. Nie Tian looked at the token in his hand and almost went crazy. It was actually a very ordinary black iron, square in shape, with nothing on it. This piece of scrap iron cost me 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones, fuck. Nie Tian cursed in his heart, venting his dissatisfaction. What you are holding in your hands is a black iron token. It allows you to freely enter and exit the ordinary places of the black market. One of the black armored guards casually said. Freely enter and exit ordinary places? Nie Tian was surprised, his complexion turned ugly, but he still had to suppress the anger in his heart and asked, "If I want to enter the black market to auction medicinal herbs, what kind of token do I need?" "You want to buy medicinal herbs?" The black armored guard was slightly surprised, his eyes became suspicious, and he stiffly said, "The medicinal herbs that are being auctioned are all in the Azura auction house. If you want to go there, you need at least a purple gold token." "How do I get a purple gold token?" Nie Tian hurriedly asked. The black armored guard frowned and indifferently said, "You can't get a purple gold token, you need someone from the black market to be your guarantor, only then can you get a purple gold token." This. Nie Tian was a bit embarrassed and said, "Are you willing to be my guarantor?" With that, Nie Tian directly took out a rank 5 spirit nucleus. But the guard didn't even look at it and said coldly, "I don't have the qualifications to be your guarantor." With that, the black armored guard didn't stay any longer, and directly left. Nie Tian was stunned on the spot, and his brows were deeply wrinkled. "Mr. Nie." Elder Yi called out to Nie Tian, and looked strangely at the place where the token was issued. Nie Tian slightly shook his head, indicating that he couldn't. Of course, he understood what Elder Yi meant, which was to directly rob. If it was any other place, of course he could rob, but in the black market, this kind of action was tantamount to seeking death. Since the black market could exist in a place like Sumi Ling City, it naturally had its scary places, and was definitely not a place where one could act wildly. Chapter 601. Nie Tian heard the voice. It was very familiar. He turned around and saw that it was someone he knew. He called out the person's name, Raindrop. The person who suddenly appeared was none other than Rainy Truecass. "Follow me." Raindrop was still wearing the faceless mask. She nodded and signaled Nie Tian to follow her. Nie Tian was confused. Why would Raindrop appear in the black market? He seemed to have a high status. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to be his guarantor. But it wasn't the time to think about this. Nie Tian followed her and got the purple gold token. Of course, he paid 10 million yuan gems for it. "Where do you want to go?" Raindrop frowned and asked coldly. "I need some medicinal ingredients," Nie Tian answered. At the same time, he suddenly realized something. Nie Tian guessed that the devil god flower that Raindrop gave him was bought in the black market. The black market was indeed a mysterious place. He should be able to buy some amethyst-flowing orchid there. "Come with me." Rain hesitated for a moment, but she still said yes. Nie Tian nodded. Under such circumstances, he could only choose to believe in true stratagem. Raindrop brought Nie Tian and the others to a grand auction house. This is the Shura auction house. Be careful when you enter. The black market is different from other places. Here, even if you're a dragon, you'll have to coil up, and if you're a tiger, you'll have to crouch down. Roi Jintsa warned Nie Tian with a cautious tone, which was rare for him. Understood. Nie Tian nodded. Even someone like Raindrop said that. It was enough to prove how dangerous the black market was. I still have some matters to attend to. Goodbye. Rainfall nodded in acknowledgement before turning around to leave. Nie Tian looked at the back of the person who left in a hurry. He couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. Who was this person? His identity was so mysterious. Rui Qianyu, Bloody Slaughter Palace, Ling Xian Pavilion, the Black Market. These people and forces were all related to Raindrop. This made his identity even more mysterious. Nie Tian didn't think too much. He could only find out who Raindrop was in the future. The most important thing now was to get the amethyst flowing orchid. With the purple gold token, Nie Tian and Elder Yi entered the auction house. A shop assistant led them to the auction hall on the 3rd floor. The hall was full of people. There was an intense auction going on the stage. Nie Tian ignored them and asked the shop assistant to bring him to the auction house manager. The steward was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He was dressed in green and looked neat and tidy, giving off a very capable and experienced feeling. Nie Tian sensed the man's strength. It was level 9 true element. Moreover, when he entered the auction house, he noticed that there were many experts lying in ambush. Among them, there were no less than 5 Spirit Wheel Realm warriors. A small auction house had such strength. The black market was indeed an unfathomable place. Mister, I am the auction house manager, Shin Quan. You want to buy something, right? The middle-aged manager sized up Nie Tian with a pair of shrewd eyes. There was a slight surprise in his eyes, but he concealed it well and smiled faintly. I want to buy a rank 6 medicinal herb, amethyst flowing orchid, Nie Tian said calmly. The corner of Shin Quan's mouth raised slightly. He pondered for a while and said, Amethyst flowing orchid, this kind of medicinal herb is very rare. Give me 3 days. After 3 days, I guarantee you will get the amethyst flowing orchid. 3 days? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He said, I don't have that much time. I want to get it immediately. Is there any way? So urgent? Shin Quan's eyes trembled slightly. He immediately laughed. There was undisguised contempt in his eyes. He said, Mister, you may not know, but this kind of express service can only be enjoyed by the distinguished guests of the auction house. And you, how can I become a distinguished guest? Without waiting for Shin Quan to finish speaking, Nie Tian directly interrupted. He really did not have time to chat here. Shin Quan smiled strangely. There was some impatience on his face, but he still said, Only those who have auctioned valuable items in this auction house can become a distinguished guest of the auction house. Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He did not waste any time and directly took out a martial art scroll. He said, Is this considered a valuable item? This is. Shin Quan was stunned at first. He immediately extended his divine sense over and immediately felt a pure martial intent. It caused his body to tremble and his expression to change greatly. Heaven-ranked martial art! Shin Quan cried out in shock. He directly shouted out the eunuch's movement. His expression immediately froze. After a moment of blankness, it was replaced by passion. Oh my God, it really is a heaven-ranked martial art! Shin Quan screamed madly in his heart. His entire body was no longer in a mess. After a full 10 seconds, Shin Quan finally calmed down a little. The gaze he used to look at Nie Tian immediately changed. It was as if he had seen his own father. He could not hide his flattery. I want to auction this martial art scroll. However, the prerequisite is that I first obtain the redbud flowing orchid. Nie Tian glanced at Shen Quan and said coldly. No problem, no problem. Absolutely no problem. Shen Quan nodded his head like a rattledrum. He said, Young master, please wait in the hall. I will arrange for the auction of the redbud flowing orchid. It will be ready soon. As Shen Quan spoke, he ran out eagerly. He was as excited as a jumping monkey. Nie Tian did not care about him and turned to leave. Shen Quan directly arranged a VIP room for Nie Tian to enjoy the highest standard of treatment. In the VIP room, through a strange curtain, Nie Tian could clearly see everything outside. The entire auction hall could be seen at a glance. The auction hall in front of him had a circumference of a few thousand meters. It could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Furthermore, it was extremely luxurious. There was a resplendent golden light everywhere. Just as Nie Tian was carefully observing everything, a few figures slowly walked over. Huh! When Nie Tian saw the faces in front of him clearly, his pupils constricted slightly. His entire body emitted a sharp killing intent. The few people in front of him were very familiar. They were Shangguan Yen and Dragon Fifth, whom Nie Tian had met at the square restaurant. Behind these two, there was another face that was particularly eye-catching. It was Wei Yangzi. Wei Yangzi, the murderer of Old Li. When Nie Tian saw this person again, he could not suppress the anger in his heart. Naturally, he released his killing intent. Nie Tian had never expected that he would run into Wei Yangzi here. Mr. Nie. Elder Yi could not help but call out when he sensed Nie Tian's killing intent. I'm fine. Nie Tian reacted and withdrew his killing intent. However, the anger in his eyes did not vanish. Huh? There's killing intent. At this moment, Shangguan Yen and the others outside sensed something. Their eyes trembled as they looked at the VIP room that Nie Tian was in. However, the curtains of the VIP room were made of a strange black frost satin. The people inside could see outside, but the people outside could not see inside. Shangguan Yen stared at the VIP room for a long time. Even if he was sure that the people inside had ill intentions towards him, he did not dare to barge in. This was the black market. No one was allowed to behave atrociously. Chapter 602. In the VIP room, the anger in Nie Tian's eyes gradually disappeared. Even if he wanted to kill Wei Yangzi, he couldn't do it in the black market. Mr. Nie, do you know those three? Elder Yi saw that Nie Tian had calmed down and asked with a frown. Elder Yi, have you heard of the Heaven Burial Association? Nie Tian didn't answer and transmitted his voice to Elder Yi. Although they were in the VIP room, Nie Tian was still very careful and didn't want others to hear their conversation. Those three are from the Heaven Burial Association? Elder Yi was very smart and transmitted his voice back. He couldn't hide his surprise. The Heaven Burial Association was a very mysterious organization. Rumor had it that it was even more terrifying than the Lin Xian Heaven Pavilion. Yes. Nie Tian nodded and told Elder Yi about Wei Yangzi's identity. Finally, he said, Jiu Shan's knife dragon arm was obtained from the Heaven Burial Association's Long Sky. The green-cloved elder is called Shang Guanyan, Long Sky's teacher. I met him not long ago and he said he would definitely get the knife dragon arm for Long Sky. So that's how it is. Elder Yi nodded slightly and his eyes flashed with sharpness. He and Qiu Shan recognized each other as grandfather and grandson. Since Shang Guanyan wanted to get the knife dragon arm from Qiu Shan as his grandfather, of course he wouldn't agree. At this moment, a graceful figure suddenly walked out from the auction stage. It was a young woman around 20 years old. She wore a green dress that accentuated her curvaceous figure. With the appearance of this woman, the originally quiet auction room suddenly became noisy. Many people started discussing. It's Lady Ying Ying. Why is she here? Is there something valuable to be auctioned next? Yes, Lady Lu Ying Ying is the head auctioneer of the Shura auction house. It seems that the auction house has received a treasure. There's going to be a good show. I wonder what it is that is worth Lu Yingying coming out personally. Nie Tian heard the discussion outside and smiled. He said, Elder Yi, it seems that the thing we want is about to appear. In the VIP room next to Nie Tian, Shang Guanyin and the others saw Lu Yingying appear, and their eyes lit up. Manager Shun informed us to come over. I wonder what items are up for auction. Wei Yangzi said lightly. Shang Guanyin smiled. Since Lu Yingying appeared, it must be a top item. Let's wait and see. Their eyes were burning, not because of Lu Yingying, but because once she appeared, it meant that something good was about to be auctioned. However, Dragon Fifth was different. He looked at Lu Yingying with a perverted look in his eyes. He was about to drool as he thought, Lu Yingying is becoming more and more seductive. I have to get my hands on her someday. At this moment, Shangguan Yen glanced at Dragon Fifth with a slightly unhappy gaze. He said sternly, Dragon Fifth, don't you dare have any ideas about Lu Yingying. Her father is the owner of the Azura auction house, Azura Lu. If you offend him, even your father might not be able to protect you. Shangguan Yen knew Dragon Fifth too well. When he saw a woman, he wouldn't move. Previously at the Square restaurant, he was defeated by Yu Tianjin with one palm because of Rui Qinyu. If Shangguan Yen wasn't there, with Yu Tianjin's dominance, Dragon Fifth would have lost a layer of skin even if he didn't die. I understand. Dragon Fifth swallowed his saliva and didn't dare to look at Lu Yingying again. On the auction stage, Lu Yingying smiled faintly. Her every movement was dazzling. She opened her fragrant lips and said, Everyone, we will be auctioning a medicinal ingredient. It's a grade 6 medicinal ingredient, amethyst flowing orchid. The starting price is 1 million low-grade essence crystals. Without any nonsense, Lu Yingying turned and stood to the side. The black market is indeed shady. Hearing this price, Nie Tian couldn't help but smile bitterly. In a normal auction house, even the best grade 6 medicinal ingredient would at most be 100,000 low-grade essence crystals. The Azura auction house was actually 10 times more than the outside. It was ridiculous. However, this was a matter of mutual consent. One was willing to fight, and the other was willing to suffer. After all, Nie Tian needed the amethyst-flowing orchid. Many people at the scene didn't know what the amethyst-flowing orchid was, so the scene wasn't very lively. 1 million low-grade essence crystals. Nie Tian changed his voice slightly and shouted faintly. It's someone from the VIP room. The crowd's gazes focused and looked towards the VIP room that Nie Tian was in. When Nie Tian shouted, the auction house went silent for a moment. Those who could get a VIP room in the Azura auction house were all people with extremely high statuses. Usually, when such people participated in the auction, many people would be scared away. 2 million low-grade essence crystals. At this moment, a sharp voice sounded, breaking the silence. At the same time, it had a hint of mockery and provocation. It's someone from the VIP room again. The crowd looked towards the voice. The voice came from the VIP room next door. At the same time the voice sounded, Shangguan Yen walked out from the VIP room and looked straight at Nie Tian's VIP room. A playful smile hung on his lips as he said, Nie Tian City Lord, since you're here, why hide? Are you ashamed? Nie Tian's expression turned slightly cold. He had already changed his voice intentionally, but he didn't expect the other party to recognize him. Scram! Just at this moment, a vigorous voice sounded. Immediately after, a majestic saber intent whistled out and blossomed in the air, attacking Shangguan Yen. Shangguan Yen frowned. He didn't expect the other party to suddenly attack. In a hurry, he sent out a palm strike. However, he was still a step too slow and was struck by the saber intent. His body swayed and he took a few steps back, looking very miserable. Impudent! Shangguan Yen roared angrily. He raised his head and looked at the VIP room that Nie Tian was in. He could faintly feel an incomparably sharp saber releasing a horrifying aura inside. What a strong saber intent! The crowd's eyes narrowed and their hearts trembled. Although that surging saber intent only flashed for a moment, that majestic aura enveloped everything, making people's hearts palpitate. Without a doubt, there was a powerful saber artist hidden in that VIP room. One more step and you will die. At this moment, the vigorous voice sounded again. At the same time, a majestic saber soul aura whistled out and turned into two shadows guarding the VIP room. Their auras were like mountains, arrogant and domineering. Saber soul clone. Seeing the two shadows, Shang Guanyan's heart trembled. His eyes revealed an unconcealable fear. There was actually a saber artist at the Saber Soul realm in the VIP room before him. After Elder Yi absorbed the power of the Destiny Spirit Ginseng, not only did his damaged saber foundation recover, but it also allowed him to make another breakthrough in his saber realm, advancing from the Saber Spirit realm to the Saber Soul realm. Saber Spirit and Saber Soul. The difference of one realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Therefore, although Elder Yi was only at the fourth tier of the Divine Wheel, his true combat ability was definitely above the sixth tier of the Divine Wheel. Shang Guanyan happened to be at the sixth tier of the Divine Wheel. In front of the Saber Soul clone, he felt a strong sense of threat. Chapter 603. When the crowd saw the two clones appear beside the VIP room, their hearts trembled violently. The swordsman in the VIP room was so terrifying. Shang Guanyan stood on the spot with a gloomy expression. He wanted to go forward, but he feared Elder Ye's strength. If he retreated, it would be too awkward. He couldn't go forward, but he couldn't retreat either. Manager Shin, is everyone in your Shura auction house dead? Someone is causing trouble here, and you're still pretending to be mute? With a deep roar, Shang Guanyan vented his anger on Shin Quan. It was Shin Quan who had informed them that something good was being auctioned, which was why they had appeared here. Uncle Shangguan. It wasn't Shin Quan who replied to Shang Guanyan, but a sweet voice. Lu Yingying's figure jumped up from the auction stage like a flying leaf and landed in front of Shang Guanyan. Lady Lu. When Shang Guanyan saw Lu Yingying, he became much more respectful. No matter how arrogant he was, he didn't dare to show his dissatisfaction in front of her. Uncle Shangguan, I saw what happened just now. It was you who walked out first to provoke the young master inside, and his guard was forced to act. You provoked him first, and he overreacted. Both of you are in the wrong. So, please, Uncle Shangguan, give me some face and let this matter go. How about it? Lu Yingying's voice was like the sound of nature. She was calm and indifferent, making it hard for people to reject her. Shang Guanyan was very smart and knew that she was giving him a way out. He said angrily, since Lady Lu came out personally, I will give you some face and let this matter go. Thank you, Uncle Shangguan. Lu Yingying gave a beautiful smile that could topple nations. Shang Guanyan walked back to the VIP lounge, but Lu Yingying didn't leave. Her beautiful eyes looked in the direction where Shang Guanyan was, as if she could see him. Her delicate face smiled and she said, Sir inside, don't you have anything to say to me? Nie Tian looked at the beautiful lady in front of him and coughed dryly. Thank you, Lady Lu. You're welcome. Lu Yingying's lips gave a charming smile. She stepped lightly, and like a fairy, her figure flashed and she returned to the auction stage. Phew! Nie Tian heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous. This Lu Yingying was very interesting. She insisted on Nie Tian thanking her, or else she wouldn't leave. Interesting. Lu Yingying probably already knew that Nie Tian was the one who auctioned the heaven-ranked martial art, so she didn't want to offend him over a small matter. Although Elder Yi was a little impulsive earlier, this was also good. At the very least, it gave Shang Guanyan and the others a warning, letting them know that Nie Tian was protected by an expert, and they must not act blindly without thinking. Then, the auction continued. Nie Tian and Shangguan Yen took turns bidding, directly bidding the redbud flowing orchid to a sky-high price of 10 million low-grade essence crystals. These two must be in a fit of pique. A 6th-tier medicinal herb is auctioned at the price of a 7th-tier medicinal herb. This is going to be troublesome. I wonder how this is going to end. The eyes of the crowd were all focused on the two VIP lounges as they discussed in low voices. 20 million low-grade essence crystals. In the VIP lounge, Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He directly doubled the price. If Shangguan Yen continued to pester him, he might as well give the redbud flowing orchid to him. Nie Tian believed that the Azura auction house definitely had more than one redbud flowing orchid. Haha, Nie Tian City Lord is indeed generous. You have so many essence crystals that you have nowhere to spend them. I can't afford such an expensive medicinal herb. I'll give it to you. Shangguan Yan's cold laughter resounded from the next room. Nie Tian only smiled faintly, not minding at all. In his opinion, anything that could be resolved with essence crystals was a small matter. After successfully bidding for the redbud flowing orchid, Nie Tian finally heaved a sigh of relief. After a moment, Shen Quan appeared again. He came to the VIP lounge where Nie Tian was and smiled flatteringly. Young master, you have already obtained the redbud flowing orchid. The heaven-ranked martial art, take it. Nie Tian directly threw the martial art to Shen Quan. Many thanks, young master. Shen Quan chuckled and said, Young master, please wait for a moment. After the auction ends, the money will be sent to young master immediately. There's no need. Nie Tian waved his hand and asked directly, I want to know, how many redbud flowing orchid does your auction house have? What's wrong? Is one not enough? Shen Quan was slightly stunned, and his shrewd eyes looked around. As many as you want. Before Nie Tian could speak, a graceful figure walked in. It was Lu Yingying. Young miss. Seeing Lu Yingying walk in, Shen Quan bowed. Nie Tian glanced at Lu Yingying and said, How many redbud flowing orchids can a heaven-ranked martial art be exchanged for? Of course, he knew that the Azura auction house did not want to auction a heaven-ranked martial art. A heaven-ranked martial art was something that could only be discovered and not sought. Of course, the Azura auction house wanted to buy it. However, due to the rules of the auction house, they could only go through the motions. However, in the end, it was very likely that the Azura auction house would obtain the heaven-ranked martial art. Shen Quan called Shangguan Yen and the others over just to show them the excitement, to show them that the Azura auction house had good things and to frequent it in the future. Nie Tian saw that Lu Yingying was a pretty good person and had helped him out earlier. Hence, he wanted to return the favor by using a heaven-ranked martial art to exchange for the redbud flowing orchids, eliminating the formality of the auction. Lu Yingying was very smart and naturally understood Nie Tian's intentions. She smiled and asked, Young master, how many redbud flowing orchids do you think a heaven-ranked martial art can be exchanged for? Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, Let's go with the redbud flowing orchids according to the earlier auction price, 20 million inferior grade essence crystals per stock. In your auction house, a heaven-ranked martial art can be sold for at least 10 million peak grade essence crystals. With that, I can exchange one heaven-ranked martial art for 500 stalks of redbud flowing orchids. This is not too much, right? A heaven-ranked martial technique was enough for a large clan or faction to go bankrupt. In an ordinary auction house, a heaven-ranked martial art could be sold for at least 1 million peak grade essence crystals. In the Azura auction house, this price would be 10 times higher. Furthermore, this was the most conservative price. 500 stalks of redbud flowing orchids. When Shen Quan heard this number, his mouth gaped so wide that one could swallow an egg. Very reasonable. Lu Yingying did not react much. She smiled calmly and said, Our auction house does not have that many redbud flowing orchids right now. We will need some time to collect them. The price Nie Tian gave for the heaven-ranked martial art was very reasonable. It was within Lu Yingying's acceptable range. Furthermore, if the heaven-ranked martial art went through the normal auction process, who knew what kind of price it would fetch? How many do you have? Nie Tian asked with a frown. About 100 stocks. Lu Yingying thought for a while but did not give an exact number. Very well, I will take 100 stocks first. Even if it is 200 peak-grade essence crystals. As for the remaining money, I want other herbs. Is that possible? Nie Tian suddenly thought of something, and the corner of his lips curled up strangely. What herbs do you want? Lu Yingying had already guessed that Nie Tian was an alchemist. She was worried that the auction house did not have what he wanted, so she asked. Demonic God Flower. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said a name. Chapter 604. As expected. Nie Tian saw Lu Yingying's reaction and his heart shook. He was sure that his guess was right. Ruoyu must have bought the flower from the black market at the Shura auction house. Lu Yingying realized that she had overreacted and the shock on her face disappeared. She smiled and asked, "What's your name, mister?" Even now, she still didn't know Nie Tian's name. Nie Tian replied calmly. Mr. Nie. Lu Yingying's gentle lips curled into an enchanting smile. How do you know the Shura auction house has the flower? She was a smart woman and knew that Nie Tian had seen through it, so she didn't hide it. I heard it from a friend, Nie Tian answered vaguely. Lu Yingying nodded and didn't ask any more, but her tone was hesitant. The flower isn't an ordinary herb. I can't make the decision. I have to ask my father. I see. Nie Tian's face stiffened. I don't have much time, so we have to do this quickly. No problem, please follow me. Lu Yingying smiled confidently and left. Nie Tian and Elder Yi looked at each other and left with Lu Yingying. Demon God Flower, a rank 8 herb, contained the most violent spirit energy of heaven and earth. It wasn't just Nie Tian who needed to increase his strength. Elder Yi, Qiu Shan, Jean Debeo, and the others also needed to increase their strength. If they could obtain more demonic god flowers, their strength would increase explosively. Especially Qiu Shan, if he could get a flower, he would be able to open the third dragon mark in the arm of the blade dragon. The auction continued, but there weren't any important items. Shang Guanyin and the others came for nothing. It really is Nie Tian. Seeing Nie Tian leave with Lu Yingying, Wei Yangzi's eyes flashed with killing intent and his voice was cold. He's the one who killed seventh brother? Dragon Fifth looked at Nie Tian and gritted his teeth. Dragon Sky had another name, Dragon 7. He was Dragon Fifth's seventh brother. Brother Shang Guanyin, what do we do? Sensing Nie Tian's strength, Wei Yangzi's heart was filled with astonishment, and his eyes were filled with deep fear. A year ago at the Dragon Blood Martial Gathering, Nie Tian was only rank 1 giant spirit. Now, he was rank 6 truth essence. His strength-increasing speed was heaven-defying. If he was given a few more years, he would definitely be on par with the pinnacle of the small world. If he was given a few more years, he would definitely be able to stand against the pinnacle. Shang Guanyan's face was grim, and his eyes flickered with cold, killing intent as he said in a cold voice, "Since he came to the black market, then he can forget about leaving alive. Big brother Shangguan, this is the Azura auction house. Furthermore, the strength of the bladesman beside that brat is terrifying. It would not be good for us to make a move," Wei Yangzi said somewhat worriedly. He had just seen with his own eyes that Shangguanyen was forced back by old Ye's saber strike. Furthermore, those 2 saber soul clones were even more shocking. Even if Shangguanyen fought with all his might, he would not be a match for old Yi. Even Shangguanyen was no match for him, so Wei Yangzi was even weaker. When Wei Yangzi mentioned Elder Yi, Shangguanyan's complexion alternated between green and red. He felt a stifled feeling in his chest that he was unable to expel. His eyes revealed a trace of coldness as he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. "Third young master, please make your move. Third young master. Third brother." Hearing Shangguan Yen mention the third young master, Wei Yangzi and Dragon Fifth exclaimed in surprise at the same time, and terror actually appeared on their faces. This third young master seemed to be a very terrifying person. Even Wei Yangzi and Dragon Fifth felt fear. Lu Yingying led Nie Tian and Elder Yi to a room in the inner hall and said, "Mr. Nie, please wait a moment." She then turned around and left. A moment later, Shen Quan appeared and brought Nie Tian and Yi Chen to another room. In the room, a middle-aged man sat upright with his eyes closed. This person's face was resolute and dignified without being angry. Even though he was sitting there, he was like a mountain, giving off a majestic and vast feeling. Lu Yingying stood behind the man and was very respectful. "Master, young Master Nie is here," Shen Quan shouted from outside the door. "Invite young Master Nie in," Lu Yingying replied. Nie Tian pushed the door open and entered. The middle-aged man's eyes were still closed, as if he didn't notice their arrival at all. Nie Tian glanced at Lu Yingying. The latter had a smile on her lips but didn't say anything. "Nie Tian City Lord, you heard about the monster god flower from Ruyu, right?" Suddenly, the middle-aged man opened his eyes. A trace of sharpness flashed across his eyes, and it was replaced by kindness and calmness. "You know me?" Nie Tian's gaze froze, unable to hide his surprise. The middle-aged man smiled faintly and said, "Nie Tian City Lord is in the limelight. At such a young age, you became the red-clothed elder of the Alchemist Guild. Even though I'm in the black market, your name still resounds like thunder in my ears. Seeing you today, you're indeed extraordinary. How should I address you?" Nie Tian's expression calmed down. He knew that the person in front of him was an important person. His tone was cautious. It was obvious that this person was very smart and knew a lot about what was happening outside. He even guessed that Nie Tian learned about the monster god flower from Ru. Lu Jinghong nodded and smiled. These three simple words made Lu Yingying's eyes tremble. This was the first time she saw her father introduce his name in front of someone. It seemed like Lu Jinghong valued Nie Tian a lot. "Mr. Lu." Nie Tian spoke calmly. "Since Mr. Lu is willing to see me, I'm sure you're willing to exchange the monster god flower for a heaven-class martial technique. I wonder how many monster god flowers I can get?" "Nie Tian City Lord, you brought a heaven-class scroll with you. Aren't you afraid that I'll take it away?" Lu Jinghong didn't answer Nie Tian's question. "You won't." Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, "If I get robbed in the Azura auction house, who would dare to come to the auction house to auction things in the future? Mr. Lu is a smart person. You won't do something stupid." "It seems like Nie Tian City Lord is smarter than me." Lu Jinghong smiled brightly and asked, "How many monster god flowers does Nie Tian City Lord want?" "4," Nie Tian answered after thinking for a while. He originally wanted 500 redbud flowing orchids. Now, he only wanted 100. The remaining 400 for 4 monster god flowers was not too much. "Very reasonable." Lu Jinghong nodded slightly and said, "Nie Tian City Lord, do you know why my auction house is called the Azura Auction House?" Nie Tian was stunned and shook his head. Lu Jinghong smiled strangely and said, "Because only the people on the Azura ranking can buy the important items." "What do you mean?" Nie Tian City Lord was stunned. "The meaning is clear. If Nie Tian City Lord wants to take away the monster god flowers, he has to be on the Azura ranking first." Lu Jinghong's face sank and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 605. Nie Tian saw the panic in Lu Yingying's eyes and guessed that the Azura list was likely an internal strength ranking of the Azura auction house. It would be very difficult to get on the Azura list. "Okay." Without hesitation, Nie Tian said, "Mr. Lu, please tell me how I can get on the Azura list." Lu Yingying saw that Nie Tian was really going to agree. Her eyes narrowed and revealed a trace of worry. "Follow me." Lu Jinghong smiled faintly and walked out of the room. The Azura auction house was not only the largest auction house in the black market, but it was also the largest arena in the black market. The Azura Arena was the arena set up by the Azura auction house. There was a saying in the black market: once you enter the Azura list, your life or death is up to the heavens. The Azura Arena not only determined victory and defeat, but also life and death. The Azura Arena had the Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow Azura lists. Martial artists that could enter the lists were all extremely talented. The Yellow Azura list recorded martial artists under the age of 30, the Profound list recorded martial artists under the age of 50, the Earth list recorded martial artists under the age of 100, and the Heaven list recorded martial artists over the age of 100. Under Lu Jinghong's lead, Nie Tian and Elder Yi quickly arrived at the Azura Arena. Inside the arena there was a sea of people. Nie Tian City Lord, between you and this old man, who will be on the Azura list? Lu Jinghong looked strangely at Nie Tian and Elder Yi. On the way here, Nie Tian already understood the rules of the Azura list. If he came to the Azura list, he would have to challenge martial artists on the Yellow Azura list. If Elder Yi came to the Azura list, he would have to challenge martial artists on the Heaven list. I'll do it. Before Lu Jinghong could finish his sentence, Old Man Yi took a step forward and unleashed a terrifying saber intent. Lu Jinghong's eyes trembled. Elder Yi. However, Nie Tian's voice rang out with a faint smile. The person who needs the demonic godflower is me. Of course, I'll be the one on the slaughter rankings. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to Elder Yi. Elder Yi, you can't reveal your strength. I'll handle the Azura list. Elder Ye's eyes narrowed. He immediately understood Nie Tian's meaning and stopped arguing. All right. Lu Jinghong laughed and said, according to the rules of the Azura fighting field, the Nie Tian City Lord wants to kill the Azura Huang ranking. As long as the Nie Tian City Lord can fight his way into the top 10 of the Yellow Roll, he can take away the Demon Godflower, and I will also give the Nie Tian City Lord one for free. What do you think? Top 10 of the Huang ranking? Lu Yingying's eyes trembled, and she immediately said, Father, I'm only at the 9th level of the Truth Element, and I'm only ranked 15th on the Huang ranking. The Nie Tian City Lord is only at the 6th level of the Truth Element, so how could he make it into the top 10? Lu Yingying felt that Lu Jinghong was bullying Nie Tian too much. It seems that Mr. Lu has a lot of confidence in me. I can't disappoint Mr. Lu, so it's settled. Nie Tian looked at Lu Yingying and expressed his gratitude, and at the same time, agreed. You. Lu Yingying's delicate face stiffened. Her body trembled, and her chest trembled. She blamed Nie Tian for not knowing what was good for him. Sure. Young people have pride. Very good. With a hearty laugh, Lu Jinghong led Nie Tian to the yellow ranking Azura field. Pointing at a golden list, he said, City Lord Nie Tian, the 3rd, 9th, and 10th places on the yellow ranking are all here. Who do you want to challenge? Nie Tian walked over and glanced at the list. To his surprise, he saw a familiar name. True Cass Rain ranked 4th. Ruozhen Su was on the Huang ranking, and he was ranked 4th. However, Nie Tian felt that with his strength, he could at least be in the top 3. It was probably because the top 3 weren't here, so he didn't give Ruozhen Su a chance to challenge him. Long San. Nie Tian noticed that the first place on the Huang ranking was someone called Long San. Thinking of Dragon Fifth's name, he could basically guess that this person was Dragon Fifth's elder brother. Nie Tian City Lord, have you decided who you want to challenge? Lu Jinghong smiled faintly. At that moment, Nie Tian noticed another name. He laughed and said, Lu Mingxian, who's ranked 6th. Lu Mingxian. The word Lu attracted Nie Tian's attention. Are you crazy? My elder brother is a spirit wheel level 1 warrior. Lu Yingying screamed as soon as Nie Tian finished his sentence. It seemed that Nie Tian knew that Lu Mingxian was related to him, so he deliberately chose Lu Mingxian. However, Nie Tian dared to challenge the top 3. This courage was admirable. Of course, Nie Tian had the confidence to challenge the top 3. The Azura Huang ranking was only for warriors below the age of 30. Those who could reach the spirit wheel level before the age of 30 were definitely geniuses. Nie Tian didn't believe that there were so many geniuses in a small black market. Therefore, he concluded that even the top 3 of the Huang ranking were only at the spirit wheel level 1. Indeed, as he expected, Lu Mingxian was at the spirit wheel level 1. What? A piece of trash at level 6 enlightenment element dares to challenge me? At this moment, an extremely unfriendly voice was heard. On the high platform, a young man in yellow took a step forward and appeared directly in front of Nie Tian. His expression was full of contempt. He glanced at Nie Tian and didn't have the desire to look at him a second time. Without a doubt, this young man was the 3rd place on the Azura Huang ranking, Lu Mingxian. At the same time, he was Lu Yingying's elder brother and Lu Jinghong's son. Nie Tian sized up Lu Mingxian. He had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He was handsome and exuded a strong aura of arrogance. Why? Is Mr. Lu's son not allowed to challenge me? Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and smiled coldly. Lu Jinghong's eyes narrowed. He felt strange. Nie Tian was so confident. Did he really have the ability to defeat a warrior at the spirit wheel level? Of course. Lu Jinghong smiled faintly and said to Lu Mingxian, Mingxian, since Nie Tian City Lord wants to challenge you, you can't refuse. Just remember, Nie Tian City Lord is a guest. Don't hurt him. Humph. Lu Mingxian glanced at Nie Tian and sneered. He said mockingly, a little loach wants to fight a dragon. I can only guarantee that he won't die. With that, Lu Mingxian took a step forward and flew directly to the Azura stage in the distance. My son is a little arrogant. Please don't mind him, Nie Tian City Lord. Lu Jinghong smiled faintly. His words were polite, but his eyes revealed his love for Lu Mingxian. Nie Tian shook his head slightly and said in a serious tone, Mr. Lu, forgive me for speaking bluntly. Your son is talented, but he is too impetuous. If he doesn't change his nature, it will be difficult for him to achieve great things. Lu Jinghong's eyes narrowed and his face darkened. With Nie Tian's age and strength, it was inevitable that people would feel uncomfortable when he said such words to teach someone a lesson. Although he knew that Nie Tian was speaking the truth, Lu Jinghong was still very angry. Chapter 606. Lu Mingxuan's appearance on the Azura stage immediately attracted countless gazes. Young Master Lu Mingxian, a peerless genius who became a divine wheel expert at the age of 21. There's actually someone who wants to challenge him. Isn't that courting death? Look at that person. He doesn't seem to be even 20 years old, but he's already at the 6th level of true element. Not bad. Too young. Even if he's at the 9th level of true element, it's impossible for him to take a single move from young Master Lu. The crowd began to discuss. They all believed that Nie Tian would definitely lose. It was no wonder that Lu Mingxian was extremely famous in the Azura battle arena. Not only was he Lu Jinghong's son, but his strength and talent were indeed strong. Nie Tian, I want to see if you really have the strength to challenge my son. Lu Jinghong stared sharply at Nie Tian, but he was inexplicably worried in his heart. On the contrary, Elder Yi, who was standing beside him, had an indifferent expression. There was even a faint smile on his face. It was obvious that he was very confident in Nie Tian. Lu Mingxian stood on the Azura stage and swept his gaze across the audience. He couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth. He liked the feeling of being the center of attention. It made him feel very satisfied to be looked up to by people. Young Master Lu, are you done enjoying yourself? Let's begin. Nie Tian sneered and said in a mocking tone. Lu Mingxuan's expression stiffened. He turned to look at Nie Tian and said cold, Brat, you've got guts. I just don't know if your life is big enough. As the cold voice fell, Lu Mingxuan's entire body released a chill. A wave of killing intent was revealed. Lu Mingxian originally didn't want to kill Nie Tian, but the latter didn't know what was good for him. He actually dared to mock him. This was intolerable. Nie Tian didn't want to talk nonsense with Lu Mingxian. The absolute heaven-slash sword appeared in his hand. Endless sword intent surged from his body and he said, "After the battle, you will naturally know if my life is big enough." Sword intent. Sensing the sword intent on Nie Tian's body, Lu Mingxuan's eyes narrowed. He then smiled and said, "You're actually a swordsman. Let's see whose sword is stronger." As the sound of his voice faded, the aura around Lu Mingxuan's body skyrocketed, and an enormous sword intent surged out from his body. He was also a sword-will swordsman. Interesting. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as a playful smile appeared on his face. Ghost Star Sword Art, Broken Star Swallows the Sun. With a loud roar, Lu Mingxuan's silhouette moved. A terrifying sword intent burst forth, and the entire Azura arena was filled with a blinding sword light. Nie Tian smiled faintly and stabbed out with his sword. A gigantic sword image condensed, giving off a majestic aura as it clashed head-on with Lu Mingxian. Boom! A dull sound of collision rang out on the Azura arena, and the two figures retreated at the same time. Everyone felt the astonishing sword will spreading out, and their hearts trembled violently. The two of them were actually equally matched. How is this possible? This scene caused everyone's eyes to freeze as they exclaimed in shock. Not only did Nie Tian receive Lu Mingxuan's attack, but he was also equally matched. Lu Jinghong furrowed his brows. In that attack just now, Nie Tian's strength was obviously below Lu Mingxuan's, but he was still able to fight to a draw. It was truly unimaginable. Moreover, Nie Tian's sword will was extremely terrifying, and it seemed to completely suppress Lu Mingxuan's sword will. The proud sword will and the astral soul sword will were fused together, and it was enough to suppress any sword will swordsman. Even an ordinary sword force swordsman would be restrained. Lu Yingying, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Her petite mouth was agape, but no sound came out. Only Elder Yi was as calm as usual. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he murmured, "Mr. Nie didn't even use his full strength, yet he was able to suppress his opponent. His sword will is truly terrifying." Elder Yi was a saber user at the Saber Soul realm. Sabers and swords were different paths that led to the same goal, so he could naturally tell that Nie Tian had held back a lot in that attack just now. Otherwise, Lu Mingxian would have already been blasted off the stage. Lu Mingxuan's first attack ended in a draw with Nie Tian, but his expression became extremely gloomy. He was filled with hostility, and a lump of anger accumulated in his chest, causing his expression to become even more ferocious. Nie Tian's expression was calm, and he said indifferently, "Your sword will is very strong, but your sword chi is impetuous, and your sword heart is unstable. If this continues, you will eventually become a mediocre person on the path of the sword." His tone was calm and cold, but in Lu Mingxuan's ears, it was like a resounding slap, incomparably ear-piercing. He was a genius that was the focus of everyone's attention, and since he was young, he had always heard praise. How could he tolerate even the slightest bit of criticism? Especially when this criticism came from a cultivator of the same age as him. "Who do you think you are? What right do you have to lecture me?" Lu Mingxian flew into a rage and attacked again. The sword intent became even more austere, but its power was weaker than before. For a swordsman, no matter how strong their sword intent was, if they did not have the support of a pure sword heart, they would definitely not be able to unleash their power. Lu Mingxuan's sword heart was already in chaos, so the power of his sword intent was naturally greatly reduced. "Sigh, for Lu Jinghong's sake, I'll give you another chance." Nie Tian shook his head slightly and sighed. Following that, the sword chi in his body erupted like a volcano. Immediately, the boundless sword intent was like a mountain or a sea, enveloping the surrounding space within a few hundred meters. The tyrannical sword intent was released, and it actually directly swallowed Lu Mingxuan's sword intent, causing him to be unable to feel even the slightest bit of his own sword intent. Lu Mingxian was in the midst of the boundless sword intent, and he felt as if all the sword intent in his body had been stripped away. The ghost star sword in his hand seemed to have turned into useless scrap metal. A true swordsman has unswerving sword chi and a pure sword heart. If you can't even achieve these 2 points, then you are not worthy of being called a swordsman. Nie Tian's vast and cold voice sounded out. It was like a clap of thunder bombarding Lu Mingxuan's ears. At this moment, Lu Mingxuan's expression was sluggish. He felt that the surrounding sword intent seemed to contain the supreme true meaning of the sword Tao. His heart suddenly calmed down, as if everything around him had disappeared, and the only thing left in the world was the most extreme sword intent. What's wrong with young Master Lu? When the crowd saw the scene on the Azura stage, they were all stunned, not knowing what had happened. Mingxian, Lu Jinghong sensed that something was wrong. He was stunned at first, but then he chuckled. Father, what's wrong with Big Brother? Lu Yingying couldn't understand what was going on and asked nervously. Great opportunity, great opportunity. Lu Jinghong chuckled, as if he had gone silly. What a terrifying comprehension of the sword Tao. Elder Yi also understood something, and a look of worship appeared in his eyes. On the Azura stage, Nie Tian felt that the time was right. His body trembled, and the sword intent instantly disappeared. Lu Mingxian, what did you comprehend? Nie Tian looked at Lu Mingxian and smiled faintly. Thank you for your teachings, mister. Lu Mingxian was shocked, and the aura of his body completely changed. It was as if he had become a different person. He actually knelt on both knees and bowed deeply to Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded slightly, expressing his satisfaction. This was the first time he had fused his comprehension of the sword Tao into his sword intent and revealed it to the world. If Lu Mingxian didn't comprehend anything at all, Nie Tian would really vomit blood. Lu Jinghong was right, this was Lu Mingxuan's great opportunity. Chapter 607. Below the Azura stage, everyone's expressions froze when they saw Lu Mingxian suddenly kneel with a respectful tone. The crowd was dead silent. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, Lu Mingxian, do you still want to continue this duel? Lu Mingxian slowly stood up and bowed. Mr. Swordsmanship is 1,000,000 times better than mine. I, Lu Mingxian, am convinced. I admit defeat. Admit defeat. The 2 simple words were like a boulder falling into a calm lake, causing a huge uproar. Young Master Lu admitted defeat. The crowd's eyes trembled violently as if they couldn't believe their ears. Lu Mingxian, who was ranked 3rd on the Azura yellow list, actually admitted defeat. Did the sun rise from the north today? The crowd was in an uproar for a long time before it calmed down. Nie Tian took a step forward and returned to Lu Jinghong's side in a flash. Lu Mingxian also returned and stood respectfully at the side. The hostility in his eyes was replaced by determination. Big brother, you. Lu Yingying still didn't know what happened. She looked at Lu Mingxian in a daze, but the latter smiled without saying anything. Nie Tian won with ease. He looked at Lu Jinghong and said with a faint smile, Mr. Lu, can I take the demon god flower now? Yes, of course. Lu Jinghong stepped forward and couldn't hide his excitement. Nie Tian City Lord, please wait in the inner hall. I'll get someone to prepare it for you. A moment later, Nie Tian and Elder Yi appeared in the inner hall. Lu Jinghong sent someone to prepare 100 redbud flowing orchids and 5 devil god flowers and place them in front of Nie Tian. Of the 5 devil god flowers, 4 were exchanged for a heaven-tier martial technique and 1 was a gift from Lu Jinghong. Nie Tian checked the herbs and put them away after finding nothing wrong with them. With these herbs, not only could he suppress the 5 poison blood infants' 5 poison chi, but he could also help the people around him improve their strength. The devil god flower's medicinal power was very strong. Even a spirit wheel expert would increase their strength by at least 2 levels. Nie Tian passed the Heaven Tier martial technique to Lu Jinghong but didn't leave immediately. He asked, "Mr. Lu, I just saw the first on the Azura yellow list, Long San. Who is he?" Nie Tian guessed that Long San and Dragon Fifth were related, so he wanted to find out more about this person. Lu Jinghong's expression grew cautious as he said, "City Lord Nie Tian, you'd better not ask about him. He's a lunatic from the Long clan. Few people in the black market would dare to provoke him." "The Long clan?" Nie Tian narrowed his eyes and asked, "Is the Long clan very powerful in the black market?" Even Lu Jinghong was afraid of him. It seemed the power behind Long San was extraordinary. Perhaps the heaven. Lu Tian City Jinghong was a San. "City Lord Nie Tian, you'd better not ask about it. Don't make things difficult for me." Lu Jinghong seemed somewhat nervous, as if he was trying to hide something from Nie Tian. "Nie Tian City Lord, don't ask. Don't make things difficult for me." Lu Jinghong was slightly nervous. "Father, Shangguan Yen and the others have left. They just had a conflict with Nie Tian. Will they attack them in the black market?" Lu Yingying asked worriedly. "Father, Shangguan Yen and the others have also left. Just now they had a conflict with Nie Tian. Will they make a move on them in the black market?" Lu Yingying's pretty face turned slightly cold as she worriedly said. "Big Brother said he comprehended something and went into closed-door cultivation," Lu Yingying replied. "Brother said he comprehended something and went into closed-door cultivation," Lu Yingying replied. "Looks like he did gain something from the battle with Nie Tian. Fine, I'll help Nie Tian this time. Consider it returning a favor." Lu Jinghong smirked and shouted into the void, "Lu Qian, go out and make sure those two leave the black market safely." "Yes." A reply came from the void, and a weak aura that was almost undetectable flashed past. Sensing that figure disappear, Lu Yingying immediately became nervous and said, "Father, could it be that Shang Guanyin will really make a move against Nie Tian and the others?" "He will." Lu Jinghong smiled helplessly. "Shang Guanyin is a narrow-minded person. He will definitely take revenge. That Bladesman embarrassed him in front of everyone. He will definitely take revenge." Lu Yingying nodded slightly in agreement. She then said, "The Bladesman by Nie Tian's side is very strong. Shangguan Yin might not be his match. Even if he wanted to take revenge, he might not have the gut." Lu Jinghong smiled and said, "Even you can tell that Shangguan Yin is not the Bladesman's match. How could Shangguan Yin not know?" "Father, are you saying that Shangguan Yin will ask for help?" Lu Yingying immediately understood. Her eyes flickered and she asked, "Who will he ask for help?" Lu Jinghong pondered for a moment and said, "If I'm not wrong, Shangguan Yin will ask the Long family's madman to help." "Long San." Lu Yingying's pupils constricted. Her expression stiffened and slowly turned into fear. Nie Tian walked out of the auction house and immediately sensed several figures following behind him. However, his expression was calm as if he didn't know anything. A trace of coldness appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Elder Yi, there's a tail behind us," Nie Tian calmly transmitted to Elder Yi, reminding him to be careful. Elder Yi nodded. He didn't show any reaction on the surface, but he was already on guard. Nie Tian and Elder Yi unhurriedly walked towards the exit of the black market. When they were about to reach the exit, Nie Tian couldn't help but quicken his steps. "Nie Tian City Lord, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Since you've come, you should at least leave something behind before you leave." Shangguan Yan's voice rang out. His deep voice contained a trace of ridicule. "Oh!" Nie Tian's footsteps stopped and he suddenly turned around. He indifferently said, "What do you want me to leave behind?" "Leave your life behind." Another voice sounded out, and it carried piercingly cold, killing intent. It was precisely Wei Yangzi. Wei Yangzi! Seeing this person again, Nie Tian's gaze trembled. His entire body surged with ice-cold killing intent. It was this person who had killed Old Li and had almost killed Nie Tian. Nie Tian, City Lord, we meet again. Wei Yangzi's gaze was sinister and his entire body emitted a trace of coldness. In Heaven Luo City, Wei Yangzi hadn't been able to kill Nie Tian. Since the latter had come to the black market, he shouldn't even think about leaving alive. Humph. Nie Tian smiled sinisterly and said, "It seems that this trip to the black market wasn't in vain. At least I know that the famous Heaven Burial Guild is hiding in the black market." Hearing Nie Tian's words, Shangguan Yin and Wei Yangzi's gazes trembled at the same time. They revealed a panicked expression. When Nie Tian saw their reactions, he knew that he had guessed correctly. The Heaven Burial Guild's base was in the spiritual city's black market. Knowing this is enough for you to die. At this moment, a low voice rang out in the air. It was so cold that it pierced right into the bones. The surrounding space seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. Instantly, a cold aura gushed forth, causing the entire space to be frozen. Chapter 608. The figure in the air flew across the sky. With every step he took, the cold aura in the air became thicker. By the time he landed, a thick layer of frost had formed on the ground, extending for hundreds of meters. Third young master! Third brother! Shangguan Yin, Huayangzi, and Dragon the Fifth looked at the newcomer with burning eyes and exclaimed in unison, "Long San!" Hearing how Shangguan Yin and the others addressed him, Nie Tian immediately realized that this person was Long San, the first on the Azura yellow ranking. Long San was dressed in white. His figure was tall and straight and his aura was low. His whole body emanated a cold aura. Standing there, he was like an iceberg, giving people great pressure. Cultivation of the fourth tier of the divine wheel. Nie Tian looked at Long San and used his divine sense to sense him. He could not help but stare. The latter looked to be about 25 or 26 years old, but he was actually at the fourth tier of the divine wheel. His talent in martial arts was astonishing. Nie Tian estimated that even Mou, Gu Qiulong, and the others were not as terrifying as Long San. More importantly, Long San's aura was like ice. Obviously, he was an ice attribute origin spirit. Looking at his aura, his origin spirit was very terrifying. He should be a type of spirit. Shangguan Yin, is he the one who killed seventh brother? Long San looked at Nie Tian, and an icy aura spread out like a tentacle. It was extremely fast and directly attacked Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes focused. Immediately, his body shook and a sword will gushed out. The brilliance of the sword bloomed in the air. Boom! The sound of glass shattering was heard, and countless ice shards appeared in the air. Long San directly called out Shangguan Yan's name and attacked Nie Tian without hesitation. It was enough to show how overbearing this person was. Yes, his name is Nie Tian. Seventh brother was killed by him, Shangguan Yin shouted, pointing at Nie Tian with a look of hatred. The corners of Long San's mouth twitched. He took a step forward, and the chill in the air suddenly intensified. White frost floated in the air. His eyes flickered with a cold light, and he breathed in and out an icy aura. He said, "You are not bad. That move just now was just a test, but it still required the strength of a Tier 1 divine wheel to withstand it. You are only at the 6th true element stage, yet you were able to block my attack. Dragon Sky dying at your hands is not an injustice." Long San's indifferent voice didn't contain any emotion. Not only was Long San's expression ice-cold, his heart was also ice-cold. "You want to avenge Dragon Sky?" Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and a spiritual pill appeared in his hand. It was a 6th-grade Yuan burst pill, and he was ready to consume it at any time. Long San was very powerful. Even Elder Yi might not be his opponent. If he wanted to kill, Nie Tian would have to fight with all his might. Dragon Sky died at your hands. That was his fate. Long San spoke indifferently. Then, his eyes turned cold and he continued, "And you died at my hands. That was your fate." His indifferent voice was extremely domineering, as if the god of death was pronouncing judgment. Long San was indeed domineering, but he had the ability to do so. Although he only had the strength of a Tier 4 Divine Wheel, his combat ability was enough to make a Tier 7 Divine Wheel martial artist bow down. "I'm sorry, I don't believe in fate. I only believe in myself." Nie Tian smiled calmly. He already knew that this bitter battle was unavoidable. Without hesitation, he placed the Yuan Burst pill in his mouth and swallowed it immediately. "You want to use the Yuan Burst pill to increase your strength?" Long San could tell what Nie Tian was doing, but he only smiled coldly. His eyes were filled with disdain, and he said mockingly, "Ridiculous! Young Master Long San, this person is a guest of our auction house. You can't kill him." At this moment, a deep voice rang out from the sky, following which, a vast amount of energy gushed forth, covering the entire sky and earth as it descended. "Lu Qian, you're meddling too much." Almost at the same time, another voice rang out. Then, the space around them trembled and a terrifying giant hand appeared, firmly blocking the mighty force from before. The two forces collided in the void and dissipated into nothingness. "Long Qianshou," the low voice from before sounded, revealing extreme surprise. "Lu Qian, let's go. If you want to play, I'll play with you." Long Qianshou's voice sounded. Then, the two powerful auras disappeared in an instant. The void returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Nie Tian frowned slightly. He already understood what was going on. The person called Lu Qian must have been sent by Lu Jinghong to protect him in secret. However, he did not expect that a cultivator from the Long clan would also appear and directly hold Lu Qian back. Previously, Nie Tian had already vaguely learned from Lu Jinghong that the Long clan should be the top power in the black market. Even though he knew this, Lu Jinghong still wanted to protect Nie Tian. It was obvious that he wanted to return the favor and thank Nie Tian for enlightening Lu Mingxian. Unfortunately, this favor had been returned in vain. "I didn't expect that Lu Jinghong would risk offending the Long clan to save you. It seems like your relationship with the Lu clan is not simple." Long San coldly smiled and said, "Since it's like this, there's no need to keep you alive. If you want to kill him, you'll have to pass through me first." At this moment, Old Man Yi stood up and took a step forward. His entire body was unleashed with saber intent, making him look like a sharp saber. "You think you can stop me?" Long San roared in a low voice. Suddenly, frost and snow fell from the sky. His silhouette flickered in the sky, and with every step he took, a terrifying icicle would appear on the ground. "Arrogant!" Elder Yi roared. The reverse serene blade appeared and slashed down. Immediately, an endless amount of ice rose from the ground and turned into mist under the blade intent. The endless blade intent condensed together and a huge blade shadow appeared, slashing towards Long San. Long San's silhouette flickered in the sky. The icicle turned into an ice wall, and the coldness in the air suddenly intensified. The surrounding space of several hundred meters directly turned into an ice cellar. Kaboom! The blade and the ice collided. Tens of thousands of ice blades bloomed in the air and fell one after another. The coldness in the air became even more intense. Elder Ye's body swayed. He felt a bone-piercing coldness penetrating his chest. Immediately, his limbs and meridians were about to freeze. In the next moment, a layer of faint ice crystals actually formed on the outside of his body. One move, just one move. Unexpectedly, the blade intent that filled the sky was frozen. Even Elder Yi himself was frozen. Long San's terror made people's hair stand on end. "Elder Yi." Nie Tian saw that the situation was bad. He took a step forward and slammed his palm on Elder Ye's body. Endless astral energy flowed into Elder Ye's body, forcefully forcing out the coldness. PFFF. Elder Ye's body swayed and he spat out a mouthful of blood. When the blood fell on the ground, it directly turned into red ice shards. I'm fine. Elder Yi waved his hand and his expression eased up. Elder Yi, I'll leave the others to you. Leave this guy to me. Nye Tian nodded slightly and took another step forward. His entire body's aura erupted like the mountains and the seas. Waves of astral energy gushed out majestically. It was as if an invisible giant hand was pushing forward. Crackling sounds could be heard in the air. The frozen space collapsed piece by piece. After taking the 6th tier burst yuan elixir, Nye Tian's strength skyrocketed to the 1st tier of the divine wheel. Chapter 609. Nye Tian's aura skyrocketed, and the power of the stars surged like a tide. Crack, crack, crack. In the void there was a clear cracking sound. Countless pieces of ice and frost fell, and the frozen space was broken. What a strong aura! Shangguan Yen and the others saw this scene and felt the terrifying power in the surrounding space. Their eyes trembled violently. Nye Tian could actually shatter the frozen space. Such strength was too strong. He had only taken an explosive yuan elixir, and his strength was only at the 1st tier of the divine wheel. Yet, he could exert such terrifying power. It was shocking. Very well, you are the first person to break through my frozen will. I want to see how strong you can be with a 6th tier explosive yuan elixir. Long San raised his eyebrows and said coldly. His tone was extremely domineering. It is enough to kill you. Nye Tianling replied coldly. The boundary zone formation in his body rumbled and activated, and the power of the stars from the raw star stone gushed out continuously. He had reached the divine wheel realm by relying on the power of the explosive yuan elixir. This state couldn't be maintained for long, so he had to end the battle as soon as possible. As soon as he finished speaking, Nye Tian's figure moved, and he stepped in a strange manner. It seemed like he was taking steps, but his speed was extremely fast. He even left an afterimage in the air. The ice on the ground was shattered. With every step Nye Tian took, the sword will in the space became more intense. In just the blink of an eye, the sword will was extremely sharp. The brilliance of the sword flowed in the air, and it was extremely invasive. The ice on the ground was melting bit by bit. Interesting. Facing Nye Tian, Long San not only showed no fear, but even revealed a playful smile. The next moment, his figure also moved. Frost fell between heaven and earth, and the temperature of the space dropped again. A chill struck, and it was bone-chilling. These two people are so terrifying. Shangguan Yen and the others focused their gazes and hurriedly retreated thousands of meters away to watch the battle from afar. Elder Yi also retreated to one side, keeping his guard up against Shangguan Yen. Nye Tian's sword will was sharp and murderous, while Long San's icy aura was bone-chilling. Under such circumstances, it seemed difficult to determine the winner. Battle God Heavenly Slash. Nye Tian floated in the air like a specter. His voice boomed out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. At this moment, the sharpness of his sword will was at its peak. It was as though the air was filled with sharp blades that could slice through anything. Boom! Boundless sword intent condensed together, and a several 100-meter-long sword image appeared, giving off a majestic aura as it pressed down on Long San. Long San's eyes narrowed slightly when he sensed the sharp sword will coming at him. The next moment, the corners of his mouth curled up strangely. He shouted in a cold voice, "This kind of strength is enough to kill an ordinary warrior at the 3rd tier of the divine wheel in an instant. However, it is far from enough to kill me." A cold killing intent appeared in Long San's eyes as he spat out a single word. Instantly, an ice intent descended and space trembled slightly. Shortly after, it was as if space was being pulled by an invisible force. The ice energy gathered together and a giant ice dragon appeared in the sky. Roar! The frost dragon roared and the sound reverberated. The frost in the surroundings intensified, and the space within a few thousand meters turned into an ice cave. Kaboom! In the void, the sword image and the giant dragon collided, and the entire space shook violently. Suddenly, an incomparably ferocious wave of air surged in all directions. The terrifying power contained in the wave seemed to be able to devour everything. Shangguan Yen and the others, as well as Elder Yi, felt the terrifying wave of air. It was cold and somber, and they retreated once again. The next moment, a terrifying scene appeared. Everything that was affected by the wave of air, including the houses and trees, was first frozen. Then, the sword will burst forth, and everything collapsed. The two people in the center of the wave of air retreated at the same time. Nie Tian retreated dozens of meters. A layer of ice crystals was removed from his body. His body shook and shattered directly. Long San was unharmed. However, when he looked at Nie Tian at this moment, there was not a hint of happiness in his eyes. Instead, there was shock and astonishment. The frost dragon just now contained the most terrifying ice energy in his body. However, it only managed to force Nie Tian back. It didn't even injure him. Such an outcome made him incomparably disappointed. When Shangguan Yen saw this scene from afar, his heart violently shuddered. The frost dragon just now even made his heart palpitate. He knew that if he was the one to receive this attack from Long San, even if he didn't die, he would definitely be heavily injured. However, Nie Tian actually wasn't injured. This was too strange. This brat's strength is too terrifying. I must kill him, Shangguan Yen shouted in his heart. Cold killing intent was released from his body. Do you want to interfere? At this moment, a cold voice resounded, following which a sharp saber intent shot over. A dazzling saber light whistled through the air, slashing towards Shangguan Yen. Shangguan Yan's eyes narrowed, and he immediately sent out a palm strike. Boom! A loud explosion resounded in the air. Shangguan Yen was forced back several meters. He barely managed to stabilize his body, and he looked extremely miserable. With Elder Yi watching from the side, he definitely wouldn't allow Shangguan Yen and the others to interfere in the battle between Nie Tian and Long San. Nie Tian, I have to say that your strength has exceeded my expectations. However, this doesn't change anything. I've said it before. Dying in my hands is your fate. As the cold voice faded, Long San took a step forward. Instantly, an even more terrifying ice intent appeared. The damaged ice layer on the ground instantly recovered, and it became even thicker. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth rose into a cold smile. He replied indifferently, I've also said it before. I don't believe in fate. I only believe in myself. How could he hand over his life to the hands of some *T fate? Is that so? The corner of Long San's eyes twitched. As the indifferent voice faded, his hand moved. Forming hand seals? When Nie Tian saw Long San's action, he immediately reacted. The latter was forming hand seals, as if he was about to activate a barrier. When Shangguan Yen saw Long San's action from afar, his heart trembled violently. Even his voice started to tremble. He said in astonishment, Third young master, he's going to use that move. Wei Yangzi and Long Wu also reacted. Their gazes trembled violently, revealing an unconcealable fear. Huh! When Elder Yi saw the reaction of the three, he couldn't help but frown. What kind of terrifying move is Long San going to use to make them lose their composure? Long San's strength is already tyrannical. If he uses some powerful martial skill, can Nie Tian still fight against him? Elder Yi thought in his heart. He immediately tensed up and prepared to make a move at any time. No matter what, he wouldn't let anything happen to Nie Tian. First step Ice Seal, open! At this moment, Long San's hand seals were completed. The corner of his mouth curled up strangely. Instantly, an extremely cold ice intent was released. The surrounding space was frozen in the blink of an eye. A bone-chilling cold assaulted, making it hard to breathe. As the terrifying cold intent spread out, an invisible barrier was instantly formed. Chapter 6:10. The ice seal barrier instantly froze the heavens and earth. Long San's strength was indeed terrifying. Elder Yi felt the terrifying aura of the ice seal barrier and his expression changed. He used his divine sense to sense it and his heart trembled violently. He couldn't break this barrier. When Shangguan Yen saw this scene, the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer, and he brazenly shouted, "Humph! Even if Nie Tian has extraordinary abilities, he's still doomed to die after falling into the third young master's ice seal. If Nie Tian fell further into the ice seal barrier, his strength would be completely suppressed. There would only be one ending for him, death." Long San, the first person on the Azura Yellow leaderboard, was at the peak of the younger generation in the black market. Even many seniors were no match for him. If he couldn't even kill a true Energy Realm warrior today, wouldn't he, the first person on the Azura Yellow leaderboard, be blind? "Nie Tian, how is it? My ice seal barrier doesn't feel good, does it?" Long San raised his eyebrows slightly and his expression was full of mockery. Nie Tian was the most terrifying enemy he had ever met. If he didn't make fun of such an opponent, it would be too boring. Nie Tian furrowed his eyebrows. Even though he had opened up the space of his divine wheel, the surrounding ice will continued to invade his body. The ice will in his limbs and meridians became more and more intense. It was as though his entire body was about to be frozen. If this continued and his 9 yuan meridians were frozen, Nie Tian would really be helpless. "Alright." Suddenly, Nie Tian let out a deep roar and released a terrifying aura. The ice will that had invaded his body was forced out by him. "Since you want to fight, I will fight with you." Puff! The ice will was forced out by Nie Tian. His body swayed and he spat out a mouthful of blood. "Humph!" Seeing Nie Tian spit out blood, Long San smiled disdainfully and said, "With your current state, how can you fight with me?" "Toi!" Nie Tian spat out a mouthful of blood, which directly turned into ice shards in the air. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, his gaze locked onto Long San, a strange smile appearing in his eyes. This smile caused Long San to tremble inexplicably. He was overwhelmed with shock. Could it be that this fellow still has a trump card? Of course, Nie Tian had more than one trump card. Isn't it just an ice barrier? Is there a need for you to be so arrogant? I'll let you see what a real barrier is. Nie Tian smiled coldly and released the sword intent from his body. Surging sword chi shot out like sharp blades, and the surrounding frozen space immediately cracked inch by inch. Crack, crack, crack. Cracking sounds could be heard in the air, and the ice-sealing magic field that enveloped Nie Tian's body gradually broke. Seeing this scene, Long San's heart trembled. Unconcealable fear appeared in his eyes. The chill in his body increased again, and he wanted to stop Nie Tian. Unfortunately, the ice-sealing magic field continued to crack. The sword intent in Nie Tian's body seemed to have suddenly become stronger, and it was very strange. What's going on? Shangguan Yan's eyes trembled, and he was quite shocked. Sword warp. Elder Yi, who was at the side, suddenly realized that the reason why Nie Tian's sword intent suddenly became stronger was that his sword principal realm had improved. That's right. At the moment when the meridians in Nie Tian's body were frozen, his sword intent broke through the limit, and his sword principal cultivation advanced from the sword intent realm to the sword power realm. Originally, Nie Tian was going to use the 3 seals of the God of War, but now that his swordsmanship cultivation had improved and reached the realm of sword momentum, it meant that his sword intent had derived the sword warp and weft. This was a unique space that was comparable to the divine wheel realm. After deriving sword warp, Nie Tian could use sword warp to open one of the 3 great barriers of the AO sword technique, the barren forbidden realm. Nie Tian's sword warp was only at the initial stage, and the barren forbidden realm he opened would definitely be very weak. However, it was enough to deal with a small ice-sealing magic field. As Nye Tian moved forward step by step, the ice-sealing magic field slowly collapsed, and a layer of faint void space lingered around him. This void space was slowly expanding, and although it was slow, it was very stable and unstoppable. Kill! Long San felt that the ice-sealing magic field was gradually collapsing, so he didn't wait any longer. The chill in his body constantly gathered, and the space around him rapidly solidified. Even the air stopped circulating. Why, are you getting impatient? Nye Tian's eyes flickered with a sharp light and he chuckled. His eyes were filled with extreme contempt. Brat, you asked for it. Long San felt the strong sarcasm and suddenly became furious. His whole body was like an iceberg and he roared, 9 dragon ice eyes, kill! As the angry voice fell, the ice on the ground suddenly moved, and the powerful ice force formed 9 vortexes, flying into the air and surrounding Nye Tian. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed, and he felt that the cold air in the 9 vortexes was extremely strong, and it was constantly absorbing the cold air in the space. It seems that this is Long San's desperate move, he said in his heart, but his eyes were calm as usual, but there was a cold, killing intent in his eyes. The next moment, an amazing scene appeared. In the 9 cold vortexes, the cold air gushed out, and the heads of the ice dragons emerged, as if they were drilling out of the eye of the ice, and each of them was hundreds of meters long. In the blink of an eye, the bodies of the 9 ice dragons were completely formed. Their bodies were made of ice crystals, and their big bellies were crystal clear. Under the illumination of the sun, they were extremely dazzling, as if they were wearing colorful clothes. However, these dazzling ice dragons contained the most terrifying killing intent. Bang! And at this moment, the cold air in the ice seal boundary fell to the lowest point, and then a hollow sound resounded in the air, and the ice seal boundary was broken. Die! Long San sneered and let out a roar. The 9 ice dragons became berserk, and their huge bodies swooped down. The surging ice energy covered the sky and covered the earth. They wanted to kill Nye Tian directly. Desolate forbidden boundary, 8 desolate broken flame. Feeling the terrifying ice intent descending on his body, Nye Tian's eyes were so calm that it made people's hair stand on end. He raised his hand and a tyrannical voice resounded. Instantly, all the sword intent in the desolate forbidden boundary condensed on the heaven/sword. On the sword edge, sword intent surged and sword light flourished. Slash! Waves of sword intent gushed out, and as soon as Nye Tian's voice rang out, countless sword light soared into the sky, and the resplendent sword light filled the air, turning into sword shadows that filled the sky and bombarded the 9 ice dragons. Slash! 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 His voice reverberated in the air. In the void, a series of resplendent sword shadows bloomed in the air. Endless brilliance shrouded over like raging waves. The 9 ice dragons were directly drowned by the endless sword light. Roar! In the space, the roars of the dragons rose and fell, resounding through the sky, but it carried a strong mournful intent. The sword intent and the cold air were fiercely fighting, but only dazzling sword light filled the air. Chapter 6:11. In the air, the huge ice dragon roared. Rays of sword light pierced into the ice dragon's body like a surging tide. The dragon's scales formed from ice crystals fell to the ground, and upon landing, they turned into ice shards. Seeing this scene, Long San's pupils suddenly shrank. His heart trembled violently, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Shangguan Yen and the others were so frightened that their mouths were agape, but they couldn't make a single sound. Bang! 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 A moment later, a violent explosion resounded in the air. The ice dragon couldn't withstand the violent sword intent in its body, and directly exploded in the air. Immediately, the sky was filled with huge chunks of ice. But before these chunks of ice could land on the ground, they were swept away by the impact of the sword intent, and directly turned into mist. After the most violent collision, what followed was the most oppressive silence. The world was clear, as if nothing had happened. But at this moment, Long San's body trembled violently, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Clearly, he had suffered serious injuries. His body trembled, and his face was so gloomy that it looked like it was dripping water. Standing in place, he suddenly raised his head, and his eyes glared at Nye Tian not far away. In his eyes, surprise, fear, resentment, and shame converged into an indescribably complex divine light. If looks could kill, Nye Tian would have already been sliced into pieces 100 times. Long San couldn't believe it. He couldn't accept it. He had actually been defeated. He had been defeated by a true energy boundary cultivator that he normally wouldn't even look at. This kind of blow wasn't just physical. More importantly, it was psychological. It was simply destructive. At this moment, Nye Tian stood firmly in place. His face was a little pale, but his aura was calm. Standing there, he was like a sharp sword. Long San, you've lost. Nye Tian's eyes locked onto Long San, and his indifferent voice sounded. When this voice fell in Long San's ears, it was like a sharp sword piercing his heart. It caused his body to sway, and he actually almost fell. Lost. Hearing Nye Tian's voice, Shangguan Yen and the others only reacted at this moment. They looked at the two figures in the distance in a daze, and the shock in their hearts was written on their faces. Defeated, I've lost? Long San repeated. He was completely unable to accept this fact. However, Nye Tian did not intend to give him time to accept it. He took a step forward, and his eyes flickered as he said coldly, "You have lost, and the price of losing is death." Hearing the word die, Long San's expression violently shook. He recovered some of his spirit, but at the same time he became even more terrified, revealing an unconcealable despair. You want to kill me?" When Long San saw Nye Tian striding over, his face was as pale as paper. His tongue began to spin as he directly threatened, "I'm from the Long family. If you kill me, you're dead. The Long family will definitely not let you off." "What? Only you can kill me, but I can't kill you." Nye Tian smiled as he walked over. "If you want to use the Long family to threaten us, why don't you use the Heaven Burial Association?" Right, the Long family is the Heaven Burial Association. You can't kill me. The Heaven Burial Association is very terrifying. You can't afford to offend them." Long San's voice trembled, and his tone was somewhat disordered. Finally, he admitted that the Long family in the black market was the Heaven Burial Association. This was the same as Nye Tian's prediction. Childish. However, this did not stop Nye Tian's steps. He walked over step by step with a cold smile on his face. "Even if I don't kill you, the Long family and the Heaven Burial Association will definitely not let me off. Don't you believe in fate? I'll tell you now, Long Sky dying in my hands is his fate, and you dying in my hands is also your fate." Actually, Long Sky was not killed by Nye Tian, but by Wei Yangzi. At that time, Wei Yangzi was afraid of Di Shi, so he personally killed Long Sky. However, he would definitely not admit it, so he pushed this matter to Nye Tian. Nye Tian was too lazy to explain anything. Even if he explained, the Heaven Burial Association would not listen, so he simply admitted it. "I don't believe it." Long San's eyes suddenly trembled, and he actually roared angrily. Then, he struck out with his palm, and an icy palm energy rushed over. This was his final attack, but in Nye Tian's eyes, it was just child's play. Nye Tian's body trembled, and he directly shattered the icy palm energy. Then, he took a step forward, and his figure appeared in front of Long San. Without hesitation, he struck out with his palm. "Stop, don't kill him." Just at this moment, a panicked voice rang out in the air, following which, a powerful wave of qi pressed down like a mountain. However, it was too late. Ignoring the voice, Nye Tian directly struck out with his palm. Bang! With a crisp sound, Long San's brain exploded, and the last ray of light in his eyes completely disappeared. The top figure of the Ling City's black market, the first on the Azura Yellow ranking, the madman from the Long family, was dead. At the moment when Long San died, Nie Tian suddenly felt a familiar aura. He stretched out his hand, and a formless force swept over Long San's body. A clear ice crystal appeared in Nie Tian's hand. Obtaining the ice crystal, Nie Tian was wild with joy. Without even looking at it, he quickly put it away. At the same time, the powerful force pierced through the air. Sensing that something was wrong, Nie Tian exploded the power of the stars in his body, instantly forming an astral shield. At the same time, his body lit up with a layer of golden light. It was the dragon scale energy. At the same time, he activated the extreme wood blue sky armor, and all the sword will in his body also surged out, forming a sword will shield. Bang! With a muffled sound, Nie Tian's figure was directly sent flying, leaving a dazzling trail of blood on the ground. One palm, just one palm, directly broke Nie Tian's divine wheel space, the astral shield, the dragon scale energy, the extreme wood blue sky armor, and the sword will shield. Moreover, it seriously injured Nie Tian. Seeing Nie Tian fall to the ground, Elder Yi shouted angrily. His figure moved, and he came to Nie Tian's side. Nie Tian struggled to get up. He felt a tightness in his chest, and immediately spat out a mouthful of extravasated blood. At this moment, a figure appeared in the void and landed next to Long San's corpse. It was a black-robed elder. With a sorrowful expression, he wailed, "Long San! Great Elder!" When Shangguan Yen and the others saw the elder clearly, they all exclaimed at the same time. Their faces were as pale as paper. Long San was dead, and the person who informed Long San was Shangguan Yen. Shangguan Yen would definitely be punished for this, and it would definitely be the most severe punishment. Wei Yangzi and Long Wu would also not be able to escape punishment. Long Qianqiu. Nie Tian's expression softened a little. He looked at the black-robed elder and called out his name. Long Qianqiu had appeared once before. Nie Tian remembered his aura and his name. He used his spiritual sense to sense Long Qianqiu's strength. It was actually an 8th-tier divine wheel. No wonder the force of his palm strike was so ferocious. If Nie Tian did not have so many defensive measures, he would already be a corpse by now. Shangguan Yen and the others addressed Long Qianqiu as Great Elder. It seemed that this person's status in the Long clan and the Heaven Burial Association was extremely high. When Long Qianqiu heard Nie Tian's name, his eyes flashed coldly. A powerful aura enveloped over, and he was slightly surprised. Nie Tian actually did not die after taking a palm strike from him. Chapter 6:12. Long Qianqiu's gaze was cold as he locked onto Nie Tian. His aura enveloped Nie Tian as a mighty force came crashing down from the void. Nie Tian was already heavily injured after receiving Long Qianqiu's palm strike head-on. In addition, the medicinal effect of the 6th-grade Yuan burst pill had already worn off. It was impossible for him to withstand such a terrifying aura. "Don't hurt him." Elder Yi took a step forward. His figure was like a saber as he released a wild saber intent. A resplendent saber light blossomed and the void violently fluctuated. The mountain-like aura suddenly stopped. Elder Yi forcefully blocked Long Qianqiu's aura. At the same time, his figure was restricted and he couldn't move. Nie Tian's brows furrowed slightly as he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Long Qianqiu had left with Lu Qian earlier, but now he had returned. Could Lu Qian have been killed by him? Lu Qian was someone from the Azura auction house. Even if Long Qianqiu was stronger than him, he wouldn't dare to kill him. When Long Qianqiu saw his aura being blocked by Elder Yi, his gaze trembled slightly. But he still stared at Nie Tian and said word by word, 10,000-year ice soul. 10,000-year ice soul. What Long Qianqiu wanted was the 10,000-year ice soul. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed when he saw that Elder Yi was struggling. He flipped his palm, and a clear ice crystal the size of an egg floated on his palm. The ice crystal sparkled like a gem. With just a slight movement, frost appeared in the surrounding space, freezing it slightly. This clear ice crystal was what Nie Tian had just obtained from Long San's body. It was the 10,000-year ice soul. When Nie Tian obtained the 10,000-year ice soul, he was ecstatic because it was an existence equivalent to a ninth-grade spiritual material. The energy contained within it was boundless and immeasurable. He finally understood why Long San could erupt with such a terrifying ice energy. It was because of this tiny 10,000-year ice soul. The ice soul was condensed from the purest ice intent and could continuously absorb the cold energy from the outside world. It had boundless potential and was extremely terrifying. The reason why Long San was able to rank first on the Azura Yellow list was because of this 10,000-year-old ice soul. Nie Tian could sense that the ice soul still had the aura of Long San's divine sense. This meant that this ice soul had already completely fused with his origin spirit. Nie Tian estimated that not long after Long San was born, a powerful martial artist had forcefully erased his origin spirit mark and then fused the 10,000-year ice soul into his body, replacing the origin spirit mark. In the future, when Long San awakened his origin spirit, he would be a 10,000-year ice soul. A 10,000-year ice soul primordial spirit, its aptitude was equivalent to a ninth-grade primordial spirit. Not only was this method heaven-defying, it was also cruel. It really wasn't easy for Long San to endure. Nie Tian didn't know where this 10,000-year-old ice soul came from, but since it was already in his hands, it would be hard to make him spit it out. Long Qianzhou, if you dare to take another step forward, I will destroy the 10,000-year-old ice soul. Nie Tian's gaze turned cold, and then a strand of sword intent surged out, transforming into a sharp blade that hovered above the ice soul. Once it descended, the ice soul would definitely be destroyed. Brat, you dare? Long Qianzhou angrily roared. He stopped moving and withdrew his aura, not daring to act blindly without thinking. The 10,000-year-old ice soul was the Long family's ancestral treasure. It had been passed down from generation to generation, and no one knew how long it had been passed down. As long as a descendant of the Long family had an ice-attributed person, they would try to fuse the 10,000-year-old ice soul into their body, replacing their original origin spirit mark. Of course, this process was very dangerous. If it failed, the 10,000-year-old ice soul would be fine, but the person who fused with it would definitely die. Long San was the only person in the Long family to successfully fuse with the ice soul in the past 100 years. He was regarded as the hope of the Long family's new generation, and was being groomed as the future family head. But who would have thought that this future family head would actually die at the hands of Nie Tian? What was even more unacceptable was that the 10,000-year-old ice soul had also fallen into Nie Tian's hands. Long San was dead, and if the 10,000-year-old ice soul was also destroyed, the Long family would suffer a great loss. This was a price that Long Qianzhou couldn't afford. Nie Tian signaled Elder Yi to step back. He took a step forward and his mind was racing. You can try whether I dare or not. Wanting to leave with the 10,000-year-old ice soul was obviously a fool's dream. But even if it was impossible, Nie Tian had to give it a try. The corner of Long Qianzhou's eyes twitched. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and coldly said, "Brat, hand over the 10,000-year-old ice soul, and I won't pursue this matter with Long San. Moreover, I guarantee that you'll leave this place alive. How about it?" "Humph, humph," Nie Tian sneered and coldly said, "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? This is the black market, and your Long family's experts are everywhere. Not to mention that your guarantee is impossible to fulfill, even if you're willing to let me go. I'm afraid that the others won't agree to it." Long Qianzhou's eyes were sharp. One look and anyone could tell that he was a sinister and cunning person. This kind of person's guarantee was nothing. If Nie Tian was standing in Long Qianzhou's position, he wouldn't be able to keep his word with the other party either. You don't trust one? Long Qianzhou suppressed his anger and roared. The resentment in his eyes almost solidified. If I'm so gullible, I would have died without a complete corpse. Nie Tian indifferently smiled and ridiculed. You don't even believe your own words, right? Long Qianzhou's eyes were bloodshot. What he said just now was indeed a stopgap measure. If Nie Tian had handed over the 10,000-year-old ice soul, he would have attacked without hesitation. Recalling the palm strike just now, Long Qianzhou was filled with regret. Just now was the best time to kill Nie Tian. If he had directly used his killing move, the latter wouldn't have had any chance of survival. But now it was too late to say anything. Brat, what do you want? Long Qianzhou roared like a raging beast. Nie Tian's eyes slightly trembled. He was still thinking of a way out. Elder Yi, go open the exit of the black market. I'll meet up with you later. Nie Tian transmitted his voice to Elder Yi. At the same time, he sneered and said, My friend wants to leave first. Is that all right? Elder Yi solemnly nodded and turned to leave. Long Qianzhou's nerves tensed up, but when he saw the 10,000-year-old ice soul in Nie Tian's hand, he didn't dare to act rashly. He could only watch as Elder Yi left. When Elder Ye's figure disappeared, Nie Tian heaved a sigh of relief. Next, he just needed to think of a way to resist Long Qianzhou for a while and find an opportunity to escape. However, Long Qianzhou was too strong, and Nie Tian's attack was very heavy. It would be very difficult to stop the former. Long Qianzhou. Just as Nie Tian was racking his brains to no avail, a familiar voice resounded from the void. Following that, 3 figures descended. The person in the lead was none other than Lu Jinghong. Lu Yingying and a pale old man stood behind Lu Jinghong. The old man's breathing was slightly hurried. It was obvious that he was injured. He was Lu Qian, and the injuries on his body were caused by Long Qianzhou. After being injured, Lu Qian immediately returned to the Azura auction house, which was why Lu Jinghong and his daughter were here. Chapter 6:13. When Lu Jinghong saw the face of the corpse on the ground, his eyes were filled with disbelief. The corpse on the ground was actually Long San, the madman of the Long family, the first on the Azura yellow list. He was actually dead. Lu Qian and Lu Yingying also noticed Long San's corpse. They were equally shocked and dumbfounded. Long San was very strong. Even in the entire black market, he was considered one of the strongest. Lu Jinghong estimated that even blade wielder Elder Yi by Nie Tian's side wouldn't be Long San's match. Then, who killed Long San? Young Master Long San is dead? Lu Jinghong finally reacted after a few seconds. He turned around to look at the furious Long Qianzhou. Mr. Lu, are you spouting nonsense? Long Qianzhou flew into a rage out of humiliation. He didn't care about Lu Jinghong's identity and spoke in a cold tone. How did Long San die? Lu Jinghong asked in shock. How did he die? Long Qianzhou retorted. His sinister gaze locked onto Nie Tian and he roared. He was the one who killed him. Then, he suddenly looked at Lu Jinghong and coldly rebuked. This kid is a guest of your Azura auction house. Lu Qian even personally came out to protect him. You, Lu Jinghong, can't escape responsibility for this matter. Lu Jinghong's gaze trembled violently. He then smiled stiffly and said, Long Qianzhou, don't spout nonsense. Nie Tian City Lord is only in the 6th stage of true element. How could he have killed young Master Long San? This joke isn't funny at all. If Nie Tian really killed Long San, then the Azura auction house would indeed be implicated. Lu Qian personally came out to protect Nie Tian. This further proved that Nie Tian had an extraordinary relationship with the Azura auction house. If the Long family went crazy because of Long San's death, it was possible that they would directly declare war on the Azura auction house. Nonsense. Long Qianzhou's gaze was ice-cold. A vicious voice came from his throat. I personally saw him smash Long San's head. Is this also nonsense? Lu Jinghong, if you don't believe me, you can ask him yourself. Lu Jinghong's body trembled, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. As if he had just woken up from a dream, he turned to look at Nie Tian and immediately noticed the 10,000-year-old ice soul in the latter's palm. He suddenly thought of something and panicked, and he asked in shock, Nie Tian City Lord, did you really kill Mr. Long San? He could already tell that the ice crystal on Nie Tian's palm was the Long family's ancestral treasure, the 10,000-year ice soul. According to the rumors in the black market, Long San's origin spirit was the 10,000-year ice soul. But now it was in Nie Tian's hands. Without a doubt, he had killed Long San. Nie Tian slightly furrowed his brows and lightly said, he came to me on his own. I was just forced to make a move. His calm reply confirmed a shocking fact. Nie Tian had really killed Long San. Lu Jinghong's eyes were filled with shock. The scene in front of him felt extremely surreal. Previously in the Azura arena, he had sworn that Nie Tian was no match for Lu Mingxian. But now, he had seen Nie Tian kill the Azura Yellow List's #1 person. All of this was too shocking. Even with Lu Jinghong's composure, he needed time to accept it. So, Long Qianzhou's eyes were filled with dense killing intent as he stared at Nie Tian. He roared. He personally admitted to killing Long San. What else do you have to say, Lu Jinghong? Lu Jinghong's expression was stiff for a long time. After a long time, he calmed down and his mind was spinning rapidly. Originally, he had been worried that Nie Tian would die at Long San's hands. Little did he expect that the situation would turn around and Long San would die at Nie Tian's hands. With Long San dead, this matter was completely blown up. The Long family would definitely not take this lying down. Not only would they take revenge on Nie Tian, but they would also take revenge on the Azura auction house. Even if Lu Jinghong wanted to draw a clear line between him and Nie Tian, the Long family wouldn't believe him. If Lu Jinghong didn't have any relationship with Nie Tian, would he still appear here? Lu Jinghong was a smart person. He understood this point and knew that he was already tied to Nie Tian. Long Qianzhou, what do you want now that things have come to this? Thinking of this, Lu Jinghong didn't explain anything and directly asked in a cold tone. It's very simple. Long Qianzhou smiled coldly. Killing intent flashed in his sinister eyes as he said, let him hand over the 10,000-year-old ice soul and then kneel in front of Long San to commit suicide. We'll give half of the Azura auction house to the Long family and our Long family will no longer pursue this matter. How about it? Don't even think about it. Lu Jinghong roared and flatly refused. He had nothing to do with this matter, yet he had to pay half of the Azura auction house's profits. He naturally couldn't agree. Moreover, it was impossible for Nie Tian to kneel in front of Long San to commit suicide. Apart from the first condition, the others were just wishful thinking. Lu Jinghong, you don't agree? Then just wait to suffer the Long family's anger. Long Qianzhou's eyes flickered with ruthlessness as he roared. Lu Jinghong's face suddenly darkened and he said in a cold tone, Long Qianzhou, I know you're the Long family's great elder, but this status isn't high enough. If you want to threaten me, ask Long Qianhua to do it himself. Although the Azura auction house isn't the top power in the black market, it's not a place that anyone can bully. If the Long family wants to start a war, I, Lu Jinghong, will accompany you to the end. Lu Jinghong had a nickname in the black market, Azura Lu. He never accepted threats from anyone, not even the Long family. Lu Jinghong was one of the top 5 powerhouses in the black market. Even if the Long family had a deep foundation, they would have to pay a heavy price if they wanted to destroy the Azura auction house. You! Long Qianzhou's face turned red and he didn't know what to say. He didn't expect Lu Jinghong to be so unyielding. Lord Azura, I haven't seen you for decades, but your unyielding character hasn't changed at all. At this moment, another faint voice sounded in the void. Shortly after, a black-clothed figure descended with an oppressive aura. His entire body was wrapped in a black robe, and even his face was covered in darkness and couldn't be seen clearly. As the figure descended, he floated in the air like a ghost. The space around him was shrouded in a layer of faint black chi, giving off a strange aura. Nye Tian looked at the person and felt that he was like an abyss with a huge, dark mouth that could devour everything at any time. Black Qilin. When Lu Jinghong saw the person, his eyes trembled slightly, and he sneered. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Lord Qilin. Long Qianshou, Shangguanyan, and the others exclaimed at the same time. They immediately bowed slightly to show their respect. In the Long family, apart from the family head, Long Qianhua, there was another person. He wasn't the family head, but his status was the same as the family head, and that was Lord Qilin. Of course, the 10,000-year-old ice soul in Long San's body was personally integrated by Lord Qilin. Lord Qilin turned to Lu Jinghong and didn't show any anger. He smiled faintly and said, Lord Azura, our family head has said that he will give you face. This kid's life will be spared. Thank you. Lu Jinghong frowned slightly and thanked him indifferently.